Hello, hi. So, as part of the year long campaign of the initiative Stand With Her, started by the Telangana Women's Safety Wing, we are all here today to discuss on this theme that is a theme of the hour for this month. And the theme is Everyday Sexism, Humor, and Emotional Safety. So, we have five panelists, including Charu Sinha ma'am, who is the Director General of CID, Anti-Corruption Bureau and Women's Safety Wing. మనము రెగ్యులర్గా ఇళ్లల్లో అలాగే ఆఫీస్ స్పేసుల్లో ఆన్లైన్లో పబ్లిక్ ప్లేసెస్లో దేర్ ఆల్ విమెన్ ఎవ్రీవేర్ వీఆర్ ఎట్ హోమ్ వీఆర్ ఇన్ ద వర్క్ ప్లేసెస్ వీఆర్ ఆన్లైన్ అవర్ ప్రెజెన్స్ ఈజ్ వెరీ విజిబుల్ బట్ ఈ ప్లేసెస్ అన్నిట్లో ఎంతవరకు విమెన్ ఆర్ ఎంజాయింగ్ ఆర్ విమెన్ ఆర్ ఏబుల్ టు మేక్ దేర్ వాయిస్ ఆర్ చాయిస్ క్లియర్, ఎంతవరకు ఈ సెక్సిస్ట్ రిమార్క్స్ ఏవైతే ఉన్నాయో అవి వాళ్ళని ఇంటిమిడేట్ చేస్తున్నాయి, వాళ్ళు విత్డ్రా అయ్యేలా చేస్తున్నాయి. వీ హ్యావ్ దిస్ వండర్ఫుల్ ప్యానలిస్ట్ టుడే. ఐ హ్యావ్ విత్ మీ Sailesh Kolanu, who is the film director and also a staunch supporter of women rights. His films always had a strong portrayal of women. And then we have Sharath Chandra, who is the co-founder of Bisket. There are many women working in Bisket and many narratives have been coming. A lot of women-centric narratives have been seeing and watching, and that's a very good thing. And then the next panelist is Masood, Hussainy, who is the executive director on the board of Tata Advanced Systems. Yes, and I have Sailaja, Josyula, and she is the senior vice president and global head GCC business line in Cognizant, and she's a sponsor of WE Women Empowerment initiative at the Cognizant, and in her earlier careers also she's been working a lot on these spheres. And then obviously Charu Sinha. ఈ అన్ని అంశాలు మాట్లాడదాం. I have a wonderful panel with me, but before that let me hand over the mic to Charu Sinha ma'am to just throw light on this particular theme and why is it the need of the hour that we need to discuss about all of these aspects. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you, Prema, and a warm welcome to all of you to this panel discussion today. So the theme today, as Prema said, is everyday sexism, humor, and emotional safety. And I would just take a minute to explain to you quickly what this is about. When we talk about a culture of everyday respect in all spaces, we say that respect begins with words and tone that we use when we are talking to women. Whether it is at office, whether it is at home, whether it is in classrooms, any kind of space whatsoever. How do men's language impact a woman's ability to express herself? So it can either open up a space where a woman can freely express herself, or it can actually shut down a woman and her opinions. And this is something which I would like all of you to think about. This theme today moves away from dramatic examples of outright abuse. And we move towards disrespect in everyday spaces. And what is the verbal climate that we create through our language, through our words, through our constant moral policing, etc., etc. Today's panel is designed to move from I'm not a bad person, I don't do such things, which is what usually everybody takes the plea, to pushing men into thinking, what do my everyday words, what does my tone, and what kind of jokes which I have a tendency to crack, how does it affect the woman around me? So today's conversation is more about the small everyday things. It could be a joke, it could be a nickname by which we call a girl or a woman in office, could be unsolicited advice and repeated jokes, dismissive tones, unsolicited criticism. It creates a cumulative climate which tells a woman whether she's seen as an equal or not. And it also makes a woman feel that she's the subject of a commentary which is going on in the room about her. So everyday sexism does not look like a crime because it rarely gets called out. And the purpose of this entire Stand With Her campaign is to call out all kinds of inappropriate behavior. It's easy to crack a joke, a sexist joke, and then say, oh, you're feeling hurt. I didn't mean that. I didn't mean to hurt you. I didn't intend to hurt you. But the woman receiving this joke or who's at the receiving end carries the cost silently. When advice to a woman about how she's dressing up, how she's speaking, whether she's too loud or whether she's too soft, how she's eating, how she's behaving, how she should be at workplace or college or at home, is usually called helpful. Constructive criticism is usually called helpful. But it places men in the role of evaluators, and it places women in the role of someone who's constantly being evaluated. Are we giving women that space to express themselves freely or not is something we need to think about. Emotional safety is another thing which we must talk about, whether in our workspaces or whatever spaces we are in at home or anywhere else. Do we give the women that emotional safety where they are comfortable and confident, they know that they can speak out and they can disagree with others? Do we give them that space or not is something which we all need to introspect. And can a woman do that without being mocked, without being laughed at, without being corrected, without being dismissed, or without then being punished for it? So, cracking sexist jokes which are targeting a woman's appearance, body shaming, for example. So, whatever choices which a woman makes, for example, then her levels of intelligence, her emotions, they don't become neutral in these spaces anymore, because there's always an attempt to control her through humor. So, what space are we pushing women into? Is it constant defensiveness that we are pushing them into? This is something I would like you all to take a look at. And of course, the tone policing, that when a woman is expressing herself, and I know one of my teammates in Women's Safety Wing, she always talks at a high pitch. And I find the immediate tendency of the men is to, please come down a bit, come down a bit. But that's her habit. She talks like that. It's not that she's hyper, and it's not that she's getting emotional. Uski pitch automatically high hai. But adi alvaat undi, but she's always corrected by the men that pitch koncham takku cheste baaguntundani. Aa tone lo enduku maatladutunnavu, you're becoming very aggressive. She says, no, but I talk like that. It's not aggressiveness. So calm down, be nicer, don't be aggressive. This kind of policing, is it required or is it everyday sexism? So I now leave it open to all of you and Prema.
Thank you so much, Charu, for focusing on the main concepts of the theme. And now I open the questions to the panel. The first and foremost which I wanted to ask each of you is, in your own spaces, whether it is personal life or in your official space or wherever, a constant everyday phrase enti that you've been noticing, and that sounds very harmless, but it shrinks the women in that space whenever they are there. If you can remember any such anecdotes or situations, let's go one by one. Whoever can, one of you can take the initiative.
I think one phrase which I always find about women is this multitasking.
Okay.
Right? I don't know why, but for many years it was seen as a compliment. Right? Multitasking women, super women. It's only when you are growing you realize, no, there's no multitasking. It is planning and organizing, right? We have sequenced it in such a way that the interdependencies are minimal and we are able to execute a lot more in the same period of time, right? I mean, I personally, I always tell my people, I have a to-do list for home. I have a to-do list for work. And I take pride in completing that. And it is very annoying for my family that she doesn't leave it, right? But there was a time. So to me, I don't know why men are not attributed with multitasking. It's only women, right? And it's puts a pressure on that somehow everything thrown at you is one. The second one, which I'll call out more in a corporate construct, is the minute taking.
Okay.
Right? Please ask all the women how many times they have been told to be the minute takers. And I always tell them why. There are guys in the room also, and today there's a co-pilot, of course, but right? So why should the women be the minute taker? Is it for thoroughness, or you just assume the secretarial stuff should be taken care of by women, right? I'll add a third one also, menu. Whenever there is a corporate lunch or a dinner, right, or any event, you assume the women will decide the menu, right? I mean, I for one, I don't enjoy cooking. I have huge respect for women and men who cook. I love food, right? So there's a respect, but just don't assume that food is an area of interest for me just because I'm a woman. So I think some of these are stuff I think you hear throughout.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Okay, I think we should hear from Sharath.
As I sit here over the last few minutes, I realize that there's so many things we don't realize, but when Charu ma'am was speaking and talking about all these things, I was just reminiscing. I'm like, yeah, lots of these things happen. I mean, as a company at Chai Bisket, of course, it's all a young company. I actually don't see any discrimination. It's just a bunch of people for us. But I have to mention that when we work with outside people, when we work with clients, vendors, or other people, and when I clearly, like, if I'm on a video call with somebody, especially slightly older people, and there's me or there's a couple of guys and there's a couple of girls, all the time I notice that when the girl is saying, even if that's a good point, they'll just ignore it. They can't acknowledge it. And if the same thing is repeated by another guy, they acknowledge it. So there's a lot of, to an extent where sometimes I also go to the extent of thinking, this is probably a very important point. Should I or some other guy actually say it? Because only then it has a weight. So I think from a work point of view, I have come to understand that women are actually much better in a lot of departments than men in dealing with things. But unfortunately, like ma'am was also mentioning, there's just this psychological block that, women can't do this. If it's an outside work, okay, women probably can't do it. I in a lot of cases actually see that it's the reverse. For most things that I think women actually deal with people in a much better way than men do because of the emotional, understanding that they have. It's very, very, very essential that we create awareness about this simple humor, those little jokes that people make. There is a lot of casual sexism and humor that happens and all of us notice it, but it's very unfortunate that we stopped noticing it or we stopped acknowledging it and we just took it for granted. I think silence on the part of women is also, that's something that's very concerning. I feel there has to be more and more awareness around understanding the room when there's a lot of women and understanding their side of the story, because this is not this one incident. It's probably in the context of years of this happening to them, right? So I think it's very essential and important that we acknowledge what's happening. And I feel in this discussion we should also come up with some ways of how to handle it, because a lot of times, even if I feel something, even as a guy, I don't know how to put it out.
So how do you call it out?
I don't know how to call it out, because suddenly I'm like, I will also become that person where like, why are you doing that? And suddenly it just becomes about why you're supporting that girl so specifically, right? It's also becoming a space where if a man is coming out and standing up for a woman, people and society is like, why is this guy just supporting her so much? What's happening, right? So I feel there's this whole environment about men and women being equal, but men are more equal than women, which I feel we need to really figure out some ways and some clauses to kind of figure out how people can communicate it, how men can call it out, because there's a lot of, including Sailesh, there's a lot of people who want to stand up for women, but I'm one of them, but I personally don't know how to do it. I don't know how to show the concern. I don't know if it'll feel like I'm over involving, or if it's not my space.
No, thank you. I think most of the men have this dilemma, right?
What about you, Masood? What about you?
Very early on in a family, choices are made. Roles are defined very early on about what different members of the family can do. In a lot of places, it's an easy thing to blame the father. But several times, the women in the family also propagate that same thinking, and maybe even more aggressively, I'd say, in some instances, particularly in what I have seen in some of the families. If you look at any school, actually, the best students are always the girls. Let's say the second grade till the 10th, the girls are the best students. When you look at how many of them actually end up either going for engineering or medicine, suddenly it's very male. It's not that they're not capable of going there, but choices are made. And I think if you, the starting point for me is that families also make choices about what is the size of the family based on whether there's a son or not. So I have only one daughter. So several times I get asked, why do you have only one daughter? The implication, they kind of say, but the implication is, how can you stop at one? And that to a girl. But these are the kind of mindsets that you originally kind of start with. So by definition, so there's an automatic filter that gets put very early about the role that women end up playing in society. Several times, even resources that are to be spent on education are prioritized. The boy may be a dud, but he's a boy. The girl may be intelligent, but the boy will get priority of funding for education. I would say that choice actually is the starting point for women actually not to come forward. Right up front, I mean, particularly when you're quite young, to be told that, listen, you can't study further, even though you're good. Nobody tells you that we're doing it because you're a girl. They'll find other ways. So in a form, you're actually pressing down the confidence right at that level. I think the Indian society is patriarchal. There's no denying that. But I think somewhere the women also play a little bit of role in making, I think they, in their own way, I don't know what, it's some kind of conditioning, but they do
Support patriarchy.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they support it. And
because they also never knew anything better. I mean, they also were tuned like that. And it's a stereotypical opinion that's been generated over years and ages that, this is how it is.
No, so I'll actually, however, I will say this, that the corporate world is probably a little more sensitive about this than a lot of other places.
No, I heard that there's one department that you're handling which has entirely women force.
No, I'll come to that. So I'll just build on that. So again, in the corporate world, one of the great advantages is that we are ruthlessly capitalistic. You're only looking at performance at the end of it. And if there is, if you create the right kind of culture and you're able to say merit comes out clearly and you put the right norms and you create the right framework so that people are able to show what they're capable of, it shouldn't matter what gender you're from. The other thing that we have tried to do in our company, at least, one is of course what you mentioned on the shop floor, which I will come to. But more importantly is, so just to give you a little context, we build aircrafts. So in aircrafts, there is zero tolerance for any quality error. Now, that zero tolerance for quality error cannot come if you don't speak up. So as a culture, overall, we need to promote people to speak up and say, listen, this is wrong. There's an error, this is wrong.
Okay.
Now, if you have a female employee who's not speaking up, it's a problem for us.
Okay. Good.
Okay. And our system will catch it. Because the error will come out and say, why didn't you speak up? And whichever supervisor kind of told her not to speak up is in big trouble after that. So structurally, we have created the mechanism where speaking up is welcomed.
Great.
The other thing that we have done in terms of roles, and this we've tried to do quite often, but again, we've run into some challenges which link up to my earlier point, is that we have not differentiated between men and women for hard leadership roles. Okay, so again, even in the corporate world, there are certain easy choices that are made. Aap HR dekh lo, CSR dekh lo, why don't you look at admin? Okay, maybe you can do some back-end engineering. But the real running the shop floor, hardcore operations, people say no. But we've said no. It's capability.
That's amazing.
So, Charu knows one of our leaders, Sridevi, who's running our entire manufacturing operation in Bangalore, building some of the most high precision parts. And to be honest, when she went in, she had absolutely no, from Andhra Pradesh, by the way. From Rajahmundry. So when she went in, she had absolutely no idea about what manufacturing is, but she dived in. And today she's running a plant which has nearly 2,000 odd employees. She did a really tough wage negotiation with the union. Now I think 3 wage negotiations she's done. She had never done it before in her life, but she dived in, she did it, and she's running it. Similarly, my executive assistant Sadhya pretty much runs the operations and plays a big role. She's been with the company now 15 years. Overall, I think the key is, as a leader, what behaviors are you promoting overall? If you're promoting an environment which incentivizes the truth more than anything else, these issues become much more difficult to hide.
Do we have Masoods everywhere? That's the question. That's a big
we'll
point
start
here.
with one.
Right. So, we hardly get to see such people.
No, I would say I think it's changing quite dramatically.
Yeah.
And I think even today, if you see, certainly in the urban environment, it's quite common to have families where there are only daughters. I at least know of many such people. So the change is happening. Are there many? Is it widespread? Is it 80%? No. But is it a starting point? Yes.
I just have one point here.
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
because you said are there more Masoods? I think it's important to have more Masoods in homes than in offices, because
Yes.
I think as a founder, as somebody who's been running a company, we have little over 100 employees now. So over the last 12, 14 years, I would have worked with hundreds of people. I think the most casual sexism and all these things that Charu ma'am you've mentioned happen at home. Half the time with women employees, who obviously we treat everybody like friends in our office culture, but it's about I can at least 50 or 100 times I've sat with them trying to undo what their parents have been telling them. They'll be 25, they'll be 27, working amazingly well. Like I actually tell them things like, hey, in 5 years you'll probably like lead this company, I mean, or any other company for that matter. But so obviously it's every single time it's their parents. It's always get married. I feel one campaign needs to be done to tell parents to just chill down a little bit, because I think that's a big factor. Because see, I think as women also, right, you can fight the whole world if you have support at home. The core problem starts at home, where they're saying, why you doing a job? You get married, then you do whatever you want. Mom, I want to go for a party. You get married, then you do whatever I want. Like, what's the relation between a party and getting married, right? So I feel just to add to this discussion, along with the corporate culture, along with the society outside, obviously, I think online spaces is one space which has become where we are spending more time than real world. And I think there it's a much bigger problem. Like the way you don't even know if it's a man or a woman or who it is behind a profile picture, but the way they talk to women is extremely disgusting when we even read it, leave alone how they feel, right? I think we can dig into that as well. But I feel somewhere we also need to educate the parents on how they should view their daughters and how they should start seeing them equally. Mothers for that matter, fathers. And then I think if it starts from there, the whole society changes is what I feel.
See, I think, I'll just add a few things, right? We often look at women, we definitely talk about physical safety. I think there's a whole dialogue on physical safety for women, right? What we are also talking here is what I call psychological safety. Now, part of all the conversations we had, why do you want to get a girl married? Because you think that she being alone in the society, has both psychological challenges, physical challenges are anyway there, right? Somehow a single woman is seen either as available, right? I will share a few things that where probably we need a bit of perspective. And I want to bring it back to how we can create a better culture, right, as leaders. See, one is every office has gossip. Okay, it's how offices or workspaces work. What is the nature of the gossip? Especially in workplaces, especially in roles where the diversity is very skewed. You only have 10 women and you have 90 men, right? At least I'm an engineering background, so I'm mostly in that environment. It is so easy to suddenly attribute something to the character of that woman.
Right.
Just because in numbers you're less, right? Second thing is I call tokenization, right? In any occasion, anything that happens, you want women because you want to show DNI, right? So it's tokenization that, hey, you need to be present because then we will come across, right? There are comments which are made, not so much, I've heard other women tell me, oh, there is a big visit, can you come in a sari? Why? She'll come in whatever she's comfortable in, right? And these are the microaggressions that I'm talking about. I think societal piece, it's a big change. I don't disagree, right? But I think coming back to probably the premise of this discussion, I would look at these as microaggressions that if you can provide an environment where women feel psychologically safe, I can be myself, right? It may be today I'm comfortable in salwar kameez, tomorrow I'm comfortable in a suit. But that should not be how I'm assessed. I should be viewed for who I am, what I bring to work, not on my appearance, skin color, right? I mean, there are like a myriad views on women's makeup, right? Is too much good, too less good? Well, whatever she is comfortable with. And I'm sure I can probably look at both of you and say probably we are in that age group where we dress up for ourselves.
Exactly.
Right? This morning when I get up, I'm like, okay, how do I want to feel about myself? Is what drives how I dress. I'm sure that's not the case for girls in 20s. Right. In that age, 16s and 20s, you're looking for external validation. You're looking for peer pressure. And, the social media has not helped that at all. right? It's a very falsified external validation that comes from social media. So to me, how can we give this confidence? How can you create that kind of an environment where you are treated more for what you bring
Yes.
professionally,
Yes.
irrespective of what you wear or how you look. And the last point, and this is again very specific from an Indian context, we are obsessed with skin color.
Yeah.
Right? True. That's another whole conversation. Just as, we're obsessed with skin color. I mean, somebody fair, somebody not so fair, somebody who's dusky. I mean, let's face it, as a population, we are a dusky population. Right? So I don't know why we want to suddenly change that overnight. I mean, we need to stop all that. It doesn't matter somebody hair is up, hair is down, hair colored, hair uncolored. Right? Salwar kameez, suit, sari, whatever they're comfortable with. How you look, thin, athletic. You are into yoga, you're not into yoga. Those are personal choices, right? I think to me, if we can start respecting the personal choices, right? Instead of trying to kind of stereotype them into, hey, you need to look like this. I think that is to me the first starting step before anything else. I think societal reform is, in my view, a long way.
Yeah,
hopefully we as parents can bring that out, but I think it's a much bigger challenge.
I just really loved the fact that she spoke about psychological safety.
Yeah.
Because I think that when you sent me, when Charu ma'am sent me the document about what this is going to be about, that's the most interesting part that I thought was, we are not talking about into the face crimes today. We are talking about something that happens every day. In all probability, I also might have been a part of it at some point in life without knowing it, but I know I have evolved into somebody over the last few years. That's because I've been around too many strong women who have shaped me into who I am today, which includes my wife, my mom, my friends, all of these people. So, but I know for a fact that there could have been a point where I also would have facilitated it by just keeping quiet. I don't know. I came here with an intention of sharing my interpretation of it is, and a hope that I learn something from you guys today. I can tell you that very interesting thing is, I worked in Sydney for 10 years as an associate lecturer, and I worked in a university, and in Australia, women force is more than the men force, like in workplaces, especially in education and academia and all. So I worked in a place where I was the only male lecturer working in a department that was filled with women. And suddenly the senses changed. Suddenly I was being conscious about small things that were being told. And and then that opened a huge bank of knowledge for me, like, right, these are the small things that might make a difference to someone, especially because the numbers skew on one side, and then you suddenly start becoming sensitive about smaller things that are being told. That's probably the place where I realized how it's important what we speak, because when you are in a room, when a conversation happens, you may not remember the details of the conversation, but you definitely remember the way you felt inside that room.
Absolutely.
That is what you'll remember even after a few years. You may forget what was said, but you will definitely remember what you felt in that room. And even I come from the film industry now. I'm a filmmaker, and I know for a fact that when you walk into a room, there are some meetings. Sharath might know it. కొన్ని నరేషన్స్కి మనం లోపలికి వెళ్ళినప్పుడు బయటకు వచ్చిన తర్వాత యూ ఫీల్ కుమ్మేసానని అనిపిస్తుంది. ఒక్కొక్కసారి బయటకు వచ్చినప్పుడు ఏంటి నేను ఇట్లా ఇది కాదు కదా, నేను ఇంతకంటే బెటర్గా పర్ఫామ్ చేస్తా కదా, ఎందుకు నేను సరిగ్గా ఎక్స్ప్రెస్ చేయలేకపోయానని అనిపిస్తుంది. అండ్ ఇట్ ఆల్ బాయిల్స్ డౌన్ టు ద ఎనర్జీ ఇన్ దట్ రూమ్, హౌ పీపుల్ వేర్. స్మాల్ థింగ్స్ ఐ నో when you're sitting in front of someone who's more powerful than you, and very, very, very subtle things like a condescending tone when your sentence is cut off, the last two words are overlapped with their stopping you and their sentence starting with a condescending tone. There are so many things. Exactly, right? And then simple things like, I know what you're saying, and then they start then, and that's the small condescending tone that makes all the difference about how you can flourish inside that room. And I'm saying that I know that women go through this on an everyday basis, because my wife shares her stories with me. She's also a working woman. She's a vision therapist, and she shares all her stories. And somewhere I have told myself that what I do from my end is, నాకు తెలుసు శరత్ when he says that మాకు కూడా కొన్ని భయాలు ఉంటాయి, ఎందుకంటే ఓవర్ ఇండల్జ్ అయితే what is his intentions అని మా intentions ని క్వశ్చన్స్ చేసే టైం కూడా ఉంటుంది. ఫర్ ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఇన్ ద ఫిల్మ్ ఇండస్ట్రీ ఇట్ సెల్ఫ్, యూ నో ఫర్ అ ఫ్యాక్ట్ దట్ it is okay for us to immediately tell a name of a woman to be hired as a costume designer, but if you want to tell the name of a woman to be hired as an art director, there are eyes who are looking at you. Why this choice?
Or a
DOP.
DOP.
So they are tagged with certain types of work that they can do and they are good at. Good at is something that we put on to kind of justify the why we are doing it. Costumes అమ్మాయిలు బాగా చేస్తారు, ఆట అంత వెళ్ళి పని చేయాల్సిన పని ఉంటుంది, చేయగలుగుతారంటారా అన్నవన్నీ క్వశ్చన్స్ వస్తాయి. బట్ వెన్ యూ ఫైట్ ఫర్ దట్ నేమ్, ఆర్ ఫియర్ is my intention going to be judged?
Why is he supporting
Why is
her?
he?
Yeah.
Why? So
Why is he promoting?
these are the
అండ్
challenges that we
ఇంట్రెస్టింగ్లీ
face.
ఇది కూడా ఒక అమ్మాయి స్టార్ట్ చేస్తారు ఇలాంటివి కూడా కొంచెం టీంలో. వీడెందుకు ఆమెకు అంత సపోర్ట్ చేస్తున్నాడు అసలు అనగానే ఇప్పుడు మనం అబ్బా మనకి ఎందుకు లేరా ఇప్పుడు, సరే అమ్మా నువ్వు ఆ అబ్బాయిని పెట్టుకోరా అయిపోతుంది మనకని అనొకటి స్టార్ట్.
I know many times that happens where women lose their opportunities also because of the women around who keep on pointing out all of these things. Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So what I was getting at is, at least from my side, what I very religiously practice is, if some kind of a casual sexist joke is being popped up in the room, ఎవరన్నా మాట్లాడినా not responding is a huge thing. Actually మనం ఏదో ట్యాగ్ along అవ్వాలని నవ్వడం వల్ల the other person is thinking that it is working and he is thinking that we can do more of that.
You're encouraging that.
Correct. So
behavior.
stop responding to the joke. You may not. And having said that, I know humor is very important in life.
Yes.
We all need to chill. We all need to crack jokes and laugh in a room. That's how life has to be, is what I believe. But does that humor come at a cost of somebody's humiliation? Then it's a bad form of humor is what. You may forget the joke in 10 seconds, but the person who received that joke will remember it for a lifetime. And they slowly go into a shell. So I think the first thing that I started doing consciously is I stopped laughing at jokes which I feel are inappropriate. Sometimes ఒక్కొక్కసారి ఇవాళకి కూడా, ఐఎమ్ 40 years old now, ఇవాళకి కూడా ఒకసారి ఇంటికి వెళ్ళిన తర్వాత అనిపిస్తుంది ఆ జోక్ నేను ఎందుకు నవ్వకూడదు కానీ అని అనిపిస్తుంది. బట్ ఐఎమ్ లెర్నింగ్. ఐ నో ఐ విల్ బికమ్ అ బెటర్ వర్షన్ ఆఫ్ మై సెల్ఫ్ టుమారో. బట్ ద హోల్ పాయింట్ ఇస్, at that small level, if we can start bringing a difference, is what I believe in.
Yes.
So yeah.
Thank you. And Charu, I want to hear from you because see, police department is considered to be the most powerful department. But is the power really validated and there for the women in the force? What have you experienced?
So I think there has been a huge change in the last 30 years when we joined service to what I see today. And I think it's because many women have come into the force now at different levels, at the top levels, at the bottom levels, etc. I remember when we first got selected into the IPS and we were traveling by train, me and one of my batchmates, to Mussoorie. There was a family in the same compartment and they were said, oh, you guys have been selected for the IPS, that's really great and stuff like that. Then they said, oh, you must be so intelligent. They tell the guy, my batchmate, oh, you must be so intelligent. And they tell me, oh, you're so lucky to have got into the service. So that was a shock to me. The first shock which I had, which I didn't realize that's how I'm being perceived, that I'm lucky. I mean, I just walked into the service aise hi, bagair kuch mehnat kare hue. So that was the first thing. And then after that, I remember my first SP, he was laughing, but he told me, all the problems in the world started when women started coming out to work and they took away the posts meant for us. So that was my first brush with, oh, this is how men think, that we have come out to take their posts and we have no right to be here. And all our effort, our hard work, our levels of competence, it really didn't matter. To add to what Masood said, like Masood has been able to create that kind of an environment where women are speaking up. In the police department, we have a situation where we have women constables, we have women home guards, we have male constables and male home guards. But when we ask women to take up the night duties or to take up the guard duties, there is no. There is मुझे स्टेशन में राइटर का काम दे दो. I'm more comfortable with that. So this is maybe what we call the flip side of gender, where there is an unwillingness. Now, I have often tried to analyze why this happens, and I feel maybe she's too burdened at home with responsibility, and maybe she feels this is the space at work where she needs some comfort.
And also maybe she's told at home, don't work in the nights or don't go in the nights or I don't want to.
Maybe that's the conditioning. Yeah,
Conditioning.
that's the conditioning.
Yeah.
So
I don't like you to work at that hour of the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And here, because police has a very strict hierarchy, I found in my younger days as ASP, etc., when I was still learning the ropes, I found that in meetings, the same thing, the policing, the tone which says, okay, you've spoken one sentence, now that's enough, ab zyada kuch bolne ki zarurat nahi hai. I found that I was editing myself so that others don't feel threatened, intimidated, or they don't feel that I'm very aggressive and I shouldn't be so assertive, etc., etc. I felt I was assertive, but it's always often perceived as aggressiveness. So here, the whole purpose of this conversation is this is what it does to women, where they start editing themselves constantly to fit into that energy, that atmosphere, that work culture, that space, so that they're not perceived as something else negatively. And this is a challenge which we have always faced. And it takes us a very long time in the police department to actually settle down, establish yourselves. And there was one incident where I was posted in Pulivendala, where in Kadapa district, which was a faction-ridden area way back in 1999. And there was a law and order situation in which about 800 people from two groups were about to clash, and they all had hunting sickles in their hands. So if imagine 800 people clash, I don't know what would have happened that day. And I was alone that day, and there were only one sub-inspector and 8 constables in the police station that day. So by that time, I had developed a rapport with the population there. So I went in between both the groups and I drew a line there. A white line. And I said, both of you are not going to cross this line. The moment they would shout and scream and come next to each other, I would blow the whistle. And they would all go back listening to me.
This is a hit movie scene. This is a very good scene in a film.
And
I think Sailesh must be imagining now for his next film how to do this scene.
So I held fort from 10 a.m. in the morning till 4 p.m. in the evening, till reinforcement came from district headquarters in Kadapa, because those days the roads were bad and it was to take long time for 20-30 men in a truck to be brought there. So I held fort for 6 hours, but that particular incident actually established my credibility irrespective of my gender, that anyone can handle a law and order situation, so don't think that a woman. And my SP actually taught me how to take a lathi and beat people. And so even today, if I have to go into a crowd, I don't care. There are many women who are uncomfortable entering into a crowd full of men. I know how to navigate through a crowd full of men. I can do it very comfortably because that's how I have been trained. But coming back to everyday sexism and the jokes and the remarks, yes, the atmosphere in a meeting hall, in a room, whether I was posted in Bihar or Kashmir, and you come across different kinds of people and senior officers. In one particular state, whenever I would go to meet senior officers, they would not be looking at me in the eyes. And I just couldn't understand why are they not looking at me when I'm looking at them? Why are they not looking at me? So they'd be looking here, there, or they would be smirking a little bit, or somehow there'd be a strange smile on their face as if they find something funny about me. So after some time, I started carrying my DIG with me. Ki kam se kam isse to baat kar le. So then they would be very comfortable with a man in the room. But maybe they were trying to tell me that you don't exist. But that didn't work. I found ways of navigating through that kind of a situation. Then there would be meetings of very high-powered committee meetings where we were heading certain conflict areas, and again there would be conversations and you would be speaking, and again you would be expected to speak only so much and not more than that. And if you give a suggestion to a room full of 15-20 men who are at the top positions, some take it well, but there are always some who don't take it well. So that again would make me wonder, how do I navigate through this? So in my mind, even as a senior police officer, I still have to think how to navigate through these situations, because that level of comfort may or may not be there in the room to allow me to express myself.
See, 30 years in the force and you still think that way. That's the most unfortunate thing.
But
how much ever we are striving to, better ourselves, to navigate through the situations, to make it sound good or feel good, but still we are still not able to
We still
make
think,
it
but
through.
30 years back say abhi tak situation
Better.
చాలా better
Yeah,
ఉంది
better.
అంటే
Yeah.
it is I will say 100 times better ఉంది ఇప్పుడు situation. అప్పుడు చాలా తక్కువ మంది ఉండేవాళ్ళు force లో, whether it's constable level or IPS officer. So we would always be the first lady officer in that district, first lady officer in the range. Men are not used to, you know, women officers at all are taking commands from you. And again I remember if there was one particular inspector who was old and very senior and very conservative, and he found it very difficult to take instructions from me. Supposing he goes to work for another male colleague, that colleague will say, oh, I know that guy created a problem for you and there were some problems, but he works very well for me. I never had a problem with him. So my male colleague did not understand why that guy was having problems with me, why he was not able to accept my authority. So our sensitivity appudu ledu, but ippudu undi. Guys do understand, particularly the youngsters, they understand this quite well, and I'm very happy about that. In 30 years, yes, there are times when we still have to navigate, but there's a huge difference.
బట్ టెల్ మీ వన్ థింగ్, ఇప్పుడు మీరందరూ మీ ఓన్ పర్సనల్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్సెస్తో కెన్ యూ షేర్ ఎనీ ఆఫ్ దీస్ ఎనిక్డోట్స్ వేర్ మీరు ఎన్కౌంటర్ అయింది, లైక్ ఇట్ కుడ్ బీ అ హారిబుల్ రిమార్క్ బట్ దే ఫెల్ట్ అరే ఇట్ ఈస్ జస్ట్ ఎ జోక్ కదా, అంటే ఐ డెంట్ మీన్ లైక్ దాట్ అని అనుకున్న సిచ్యువేషన్స్లో మీరు ఎలా రియాక్ట్ అయ్యారు? హౌ డిడ్ యూ రియాక్ట్? అండ్ ఆల్సో ద మెన్ హియర్, మీరు అలాంటివి ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ అయినప్పుడు మీ కలీగ్స్తో కానీ అక్కడ విమెన్ ఇన్ యువర్ ఆఫీసెస్ వెన్ దే వర్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్సింగ్ ఆల్ ఆఫ్ దాట్, మీరు అన్నారు వీ కుడెంట్ వాయిస్ ఇట్ అవుట్, బట్ డిడ్ యూ ఆల్సో ఫీల్ బ్యాడ్ ఇన్సైడ్ దట్ యునో ఇట్ షుడెంట్ హ్యావ్ హ్యాపెండ్ లైక్ దట్ అని, దే డెంట్ మీన్ లైక్ దట్ అని మీకు అనిపించిందా, లేకపోతే లేదు అట్లా మాట్లాడుకుని ఉండాల్సింది అనిపించిందా? అంటే ఇలాంటివి ఏమైనా మీరు ఎన్కౌంటర్ చేసినవి, ఇఫ్ యూ కెన్ షేర్ ఎనీ ఆఫ్ దోస్ స్టోరీస్.
ఏం లేదు, మీనయ్య అంటారు, ప్రింట్ మీన్ ఏం ఉండదు, దట్స్ జస్ట్ వే ఆఫ్ కవరింగ్ అప్. డెఫినెట్లీ అది ఇన్హెరెంట్ వస్తుంది, బట్
No, happened recently only. Just remembers from the last week only. On a flight, the captain starts to speak.
Yeah.
Female voice. Guy next to me saying, "Vamma amai pilot anadu." I'm saying,
Yeah, the mindset
comes from the mindset of,
Yes.
you know, that, and he told it to another family member. So I looked at him. What else can we do? That is those are the places where.
I'll tell you the facts, by the way.
You can educate us
You're
next
in
time.
aerospace.
Yeah.
So most men pilots are fighter pilots who like to do what is called a hard landing. So when you land, the landing is terrible, but it's a matter of ego that I got to do a hard landing. So, but the same thing when a woman lands, it's a much smoother landing. Okay, so just notice it the next time. So my wife, who's
I
a
was
fighter
just gonna
pilot's
say
daughter, says it must be a man, bad landing. So actually speaking,
No, this was
that is
observation
also a
that I
sexist
had.
remark
listen,
against a
that's
man.
No, but
I think we
this
can
is a
live
genuine
with
observation that I
Yeah.
had is like I fly a lot between Bombay and Hyderabad. When I was making a film in Bombay, I used to like take a flight in the morning and again take a flight in the evening. I was on the flight so much time. This was the same observation that I had, sir. This whenever I hear a female pilot's voice, automatically the landing is much smoother. I used to think, why? I never had. So now I know what you're saying. Yeah, because they're fighter pilots and
aircrafts have a shorter runway. It's much
correct. Oh,
वो आदत हो गया है.
I learned something new today.
So I have a few things which I'm sure all of us experienced, right? I think, and I want to make it more funny also, right? This was when I started learning driving, right? And at that time, my ex-husband and I, both of us went to the same driving school. We wanted to learn together. I am somebody who has been riding cycles since my probably when year 10. I've done two-wheelers, I've roamed everywhere. So I have a sense of driving. I'm just learning a four-wheeler. Okay, इधर same driving coach, okay? To him he says, अच्छा ये clutch है, वो brake है, वो accelerate है, ठीक है. मेरे को साथ है, मैडम इसको ना इंडिकेटर बोलते हैं, इसको राइट करने से राइट जाता है लेफ्ट. एंड आई एम लाइक, ओके, यू डिड नॉट चेक my competency, you just assumed that I wouldn't know an indicator, somebody who's been driving. See, that is everyday sexism, right? The same situation, two people. Second thing, and this is even more hilarious, so my son is 26, right, and he's working, and of course he's got a financial footprint. So I got a phone call on my this thing, and they say, oh, we want to talk about financial management, wealth management. And I'm a banker, right? I've worked in a bank and I actually run all my finances. So I said, no, he's not there, I'm his mother. Oh, we want to talk to him only, madam. Like,
Yeah.
Your loss, right? Because my earning potential is 10x my son's, and you chose not to talk to me about it, right? So all these are microaggressions, right? And whenever I take out my team, invariably the team is about 90% men, 10% women. In fact, if we are 2 women in a meeting or on a table, we think that's a record. The menu, right? Food menu comes to me, drinks menu goes to the guys. And invariably, I had guys in my team who wouldn't drink, and then it gets passed around. Even the final bill, the bill always gets presented to the man. Just observe, right? In all the hotels, and these are certain things, right? Now, how much do you want to call out? But the bill always gets presented to the guy, right? They're not bothered about who is there, what is there. It always goes to the guy, whether you're in a social setting. I think that's how the society is conditioned. But I mean, previously I used to get quite annoyed. Now I just laugh it off, saying this is how it is.
So sexism in the name of chivalry.
Yeah.
Is very common, and that's a very interesting.
No, but I think the opposite of it is because they don't want to be seen as this. The chivalry has died, and we as women, we love chivalry, right? Who is saying lose? Please hold the door for me. Please hold the chair for me, right? Please, I don't want you to lose the chivalry.
Ma'am, but that's something that I was going to ask you people, because it is now
it's a very tricky situation.
It's a very tricky scenario.
I was feeling when you were saying that. I've had people
Can I offer my seat to you? Would you be offended? Like, I don't know that. I'm still learning how to
No. So I'll tell you. I think there's chivalry and there's politeness. At the end, if you can stand up, you stand up. So you offer the seat to anybody. They may say, no, I don't want it. Then you keep sitting. But on this food thing, because you mentioned it a couple of times, I must tell you, in my company, I'm very clear, I order it. Okay, and I'll tell you why. Because my idol is Jaspal Bhatti. I don't know if you remember, flop show. Yeah. So Jaspal Bhatti, very early on in one of his skits, they were doing a meeting, and he said, "वो सब छोड़ो, समोसे कहाँ से आ रहे हैं?" So he said, meeting जैसे भी हो, समोसे कच्चे नहीं होना चाहिए. I strongly live by that premise. So the food is always taken care of. So that is one thing that I do. Second, whenever we go out to eat, my wife always pays. But you're right, the bill will always come to me. So I'll say, नहीं वो मैडम पे कर रही है.
Whenever you stand up for yourself and you speak it out and say, of course I know what is an indicator, I've been driving. So whenever you make that statement, చెప్తారు నాకు తెలుసు, నాకు ఇది వచ్చు అని మీరు చెప్పినప్పుడు అటు నుంచి ఎట్లా ఉంటుంది?
వాళ్ళకి నచ్చదు, రైట్?
That's what I mean.
తెలుగులో చెప్పాలంటే మొహం మాడిపోతుంది, రైట్? And I give you another example. So this is one, right? So this was also when I was traveling with a male colleague on an aeroplane, right? And this is an international travel. వాళ్ళకి వాల్ స్ట్రీట్ జనరల్ ఇచ్చారండి, నాకేమో వోగో లేకపోతే సంథింగ్ ఎల్స్ ఫెమినా లాంటిది నాకు ఇచ్చారు. నేను అన్నాను, ఆన్ వాట్ పాయింట్ డిడ్ యూ అజ్యూమ్ ఐఎమ్ నాట్ ఇంట్రెస్టెడ్ ఇన్ వాల్ స్ట్రీట్ జనరల్, బికాస్ ఐ వాజ్ యాక్చువల్లీ లుకింగ్ ఫార్వర్డ్ టు ద వాల్ స్ట్రీట్ జనరల్ ఎకనామిస్ట్, రైట్? See, and I'm like, this time, as you said, I actually asked her, air hostess, saying, what is the logic that you gave him that and you gave me this? Papa, and she was very uncomfortable. I said, look, you should have asked me what I want. I would have picked up the Economist or a Wall Street Journal. You just assumed I'm okay with a Architectural Digest or a Vogue. I think that behavior stop. Just ask. Yeah. Maybe the lady is genuinely interested in Vogue. She'll pick it up. Right? But just don't. I think the biggest thing which I would say is, do not make decisions on behalf of women. Let them choose.
Yeah.
That is the biggest thing.
So the man needs to choose if he wants a Vogue or an Economist.
Yeah, but the patriarchy is that somehow.
Right. Yes.
No, but I don't know. Maybe it's not fun for me. I like Wall Street Journal. Yeah. So my point is, let it be my decision. Yeah. Right? Give the space for the women to make a choice. And I think that's a very simple statement, but the choice doesn't exist in various fronts. And people are making decisions. It could be same thing. You just came from maternity. You think you can travel?
Yeah.
That's up to her. She'll figure it out. If she can't, I'm sure God has given her a voice and she will express, right? Yeah. But I think this constant decision-making authority that people assume that they can decide on your behalf is probably something that we should stop. And that decision-making is with patriarchal society, fathers, brothers, bosses, colleagues. Just stop. Women are very capable of making those choices. I think if we can just underline that and remember that, I think that itself is a minor correction that we can do, which will go a long way.
Yeah, and I also want to hear from the men in the room, the three of you. How do you experience all of these? I mean, when the women in your workforce, they experience such thing and they come and tell you, like, look, this is what is happening. There is this man who is doing all of this. I mean, because you being the bosses of your space. So how do you respond?
Do
how
women
do you react?
come and
yeah,
tell
the
you?
women who come
First
and tell
of all,
to you,
they come and talk to
they
you about
talk
this.
to you about this. They say that, this is what has happened to me. I'm not happy with it. I'm uncomfortable.
In our team, it happens. Like, this guy is saying that even in meetings, right? Like, it's a very very normal thing given my personality. But when some girl says something, when some guy says something, I make sure like I actually use this reverse on the guy and be like, dude, like she's right, you wait. Like,
Okay.
so we ensure that we clip it at the beginning because that's what becomes a culture in the company. I think I can confidently say that in our team, actually, women actually speak up a little more because like I take their opinion a little more seriously than men's. Also because I am a man, I always look forward to the other perspective. So the way I see gender in my office is just, it is true that we are built a little differently genetically in terms of how we perceive things, and I think we should embrace the beauty of it. I think there's also a little problem with trying to be exactly equal, and when I say equal, not in terms of level but in terms of what qualities you can bring. I think women bring some wonderfully interesting perspectives into every situation, and I, as somebody running my company, ensure that I always get that opinion and their perspective. If there's anything to be dealt with people, I prefer, like my chief of staff is a girl, I always ask her, is this okay? Will I come across as something wrong? Because I know she has a little more emotional quotient than I do. So the way I look at this is, men have certain strengths, women have certain strengths, and as somebody running a company, I should ensure that the productivity of the company has to be high. My opinion or my prejudice is not important. My team anta 24-25 age group, like ma'am said, ఇప్పుడు ఉన్న జనరేషన్ లో అంత డిస్క్రిమినేషన్ అలా ఉండాలి, అలా ఏం అందరూ ఒకటేలాగా వాళ్ళందరూ కలిసి తిరుగుతారు, హ్యాబిట్స్ గిబిట్స్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ దేర్ ఇస్ నో డిఫరెన్స్. ఐ రియలైజ్ బయట వాళ్ళతో మాట్లాడేటప్పుడు చాలా క్లియర్గా ఉంటుంది. ఎవరైనా అమ్మాయి చెప్తుంటే వాళ్ళ రియాక్షన్ అది కాదు, అండ్ దెన్ ఐ మేక్ ష్యూర్ దట్ ఐ టెల్ దెమ్, కాదు చెప్పేది తినండి కదా, ఆమె కరెక్ట్గా చెప్తున్నారు కదా, తినండి కదా అని. అది కూడా ఇందాక మాట్లాడి చాలా సాఫ్ట్గా చెప్పాలి కానీ అసర్టివ్గా యూ షుడ్ సే దట్. ఆర్ ఆఫ్టర్ ఎవ్రీథింగ్ దే విల్ ఆస్క్ అస్ ఓకేనా అని. ఐమ్ లైక్, ఆమె చెప్పింది కదా, మళ్ళీ నన్ను ఎందుకు అడుగుతున్నారు మీరు? సో ఈ చిన్న చిన్న మూమెంట్స్ ఉంటాయి తప్ప, అంటే మా చాలా యంగ్ టీమ్ కాబట్టి నేను అంత ఎక్స్పీరియన్స్ చేయలేదు. ఇన్ఫాక్ట్ మా టీంలో కొంచెం విమెనే కొంచెం ఎక్కువ డామినేట్ చేస్తారు చెప్పాలంటే. హ్యాపీ విత్ ఇట్, అది కరెక్టే అనిపిస్తుంది.
But see, I have a point. Men always dominate. So the moment women dominate, why do you say women dominate? Right? Intlo amma dominate cheyara. Can anybody say that wife is not the boss or mother is not the boss? So work దగ్గర why do we see? I think and this is probably since we are having this conversation, right?
This is a casual.
I know. So let's not. I think to me we should normalize. We should also normalize that women are dominating. Women can be aggressive, right? Women are ambitious,
And they need to be in many cases.
And we need not be apologetic
it
about
is not
it for being so.
So and also it doesn't have to be called out. It doesn't have to be called out that okay, if she's ambitious, it's great, right? I mean, I do see another trend that we are seeing is with single women. There are quite a few women who are single, right? And that's their choice. Again, see, choice. Up to them, right? There are lots of comments on that.
I've faced that all my life, having made the choice of being single. And either you're laughed at, you're mocked at, or you're told that you're going to regret it later and things like that. It's huge for single women.
Even there are other comments. What will you do with all this money? Right? Why do you have to earn so much? What will you do with all this money? There was another single lady who actually told me, they said, you can stay back and finish this. Anyway, you have no family. What will you do going home early?
Yes, and very interestingly for single women, like if I find that if there is a particular situation, if I have a married batchmate, she's not going to get calls at 4 a.m. in the morning, but I will get called for a silly reason at 4 a.m. in the morning because they feel they can take that liberty with you.
No, they're assuming. See, again, they're making a choice.
That you're free.
There's no life.
There's no
right?
life.
She's not married, no liability, no life. Right? That's again an assumption.
Yes.
It's the same thing with single women. It's the same thing with women who don't want kids.
Yes.
That's another big topic, right?
Look, or divorcee.
Divorcee, yes. I mean, I must admit, I think having gone through one myself, the stigma which was there probably 10-15 years ago is a lot less now.
Yes.
There was huge stigma in the past. Now it is a lot less. But yes, that's also like, eyebrows go up because then the conversation, social conversation ends. Because the next question is, what does your husband do? I'm saying ex-husband. Then like it becomes very awkward. What do I ask her then? Right? So you don't want to get to know me. You have no other small talk. So a lot of these things are prevalent, right? Which we can address.
So everywhere
Sometimes in my movies, actually, I make my protagonist behave a little insensitive to women, and later on correct him, just to give that feel of, like, for example, in Hit 1, you'll see the character Vikram is sitting in exactly the same thing. He's investigating a woman, and she says that, you know, I'm a divorcee, sir, and I meet my ex-husband once in a week to see the kid and all. And in the subsequent line of questioning, he mentions, you go to meet your husband, right? And she says, ex-husband, sir. And he says, yeah, that only. Okay, so we intentionally we try to put these very subtle things later on, somewhere redeeming that character. Some even in Hit 3 Arjun Sarkar character, when there is a character called Varsha who's probably reflective of whatever we are talking here, like casual sexism happens at the workplace every time, and in one instance she questions the character, why did you ask that? Is it because I'm a woman? And he says, yeah, can we go on, right? And then once everything is over, at the end of the conversation, and he gives her a genuine compliment and says that it's not because you're a woman or a man, I genuinely liked what you did.
Yes.
So stuff like that, we try
there's
to...
a redemption.
It's a small redemption that we give. We feel when you flaw the character and redeem it, I think the message goes a long way.
Interesting
Is
way
what
of handling this.
Coming back to what you asked, like, do women come and open up and talk to you at your workplace? I feel I've noticed this, that the women that I am working with, most of them are desensitized to this. I don't know what all must they must have faced in their lives, that now I see them almost desensitized to certain things, that I see that it's blatantly wrong, something is happening. And when I try to open a conversation with them, they're saying, it's okay, it happens every day with us. It's like, I don't know where it is heading, like, you know. And for a woman to come and open up to you, and this is what I realized, that they come and open up to you and talk about things only if they feel that you are sensitive enough to understand that
You make an effort to address it.
So and what I do from my end is, like, I work with my assistant directors and associate directors who are like, we are a bunch of boys, like, you know, like all of them are young boys, like, you know, 21, 22, 23. I kind of, like, whatever I have learned in 40 years of my life, like, there are some etiquettes that you can follow, like, where do you look at when you're talking to women, and always keep your mouth shut until the other person is done talking. You have a lid on your eyes and mouth, you don't have a lid on your ears for a reason. You know, keep listening, like, be a good listener, let them finish the whole thing and wait for you to talk, and then you can talk. And don't offer help when it is not needed. Mind your business. You know, there are, like, you know, gym, for example, if you go to a gym, you want to teach form, you want to teach a woman who's working out in front and she's minding her own job, she never asked you for help, you want to tell her that is a bad form, and you have to correct it. Why?
I know.
There is a trainer who's hired for that, he'll take care of it. You are working on your body, please mind your work. If she really needs that help, and if she feels safe enough to ask you, you know, the energy that you gave after you came into the gym, if she feels safe enough to really ask you for that help, if the trainer is busy, she will ask you, and you can help them. These are some casual things that keep happening every day.
The participation of women in the shop floor on manufacturing is actually quite low. It's a little more nowadays with the electronics industry. But on core manufacturing, if you go to some of the aerospace or the automotive industries, the work still demands a fair amount of physical labor. Okay, I mean, it requires a certain amount of strength that you still need to do, and there you will find very, very low participation of women. As a matter of fact, it comes down to even simple things like in the recruitment. When you look at recruiting from the ITIs, you will find a lot of girls in the ITI for the electrical trade, but you'll not find them in the fitter trade. Okay, so when you actually, so that itself is one choice, so to speak, to say, listen, you can work in a sanitized factory, but you can't necessarily work on the shop floor. When we started our manufacturing, whatever, 15, 16 years back, we said that we wanted to do this company differently in many, many ways, including how we approach pretty much everything. And I think we were also quite keen that we have many more women coming onto the shop floor. Now, there are 2-3 reasons for it. The reality is the status of women in India is bad. I think that's a given. The status of girls in rural India is even worse. And it then becomes a vicious cycle. Because what happens is, firstly, for a young girl in a village, there are choices made not just with her life, but also with nutrition. The girl eats last. So the father eats, son eats, then whatever little is left, the girl lifts. So they obviously, nutritionally, they're not in the best place. Second, left to life as is, very likely they'll get married at an early age. They will then have an early pregnancy because they're not nutritionally adequate. The pregnancy will usually cause even more harm to them. And as time goes along, unfortunately, again, I'm making this a little worse than it is. Very likely the husband will turn into an alcoholic. Very likely they may end up deserting. What then happens is that the young children are pretty much brought up by the mother, who then face also a lot of stigma. So if you just see, there's a whole issue that happens because women are not entirely treated well in the rural scenario. We had done a lot of studies also with not just India, but also if you see in the United States with how communities of certain minority groups are impacted by single mothers and crime and drugs and all of those things. So what we said was it's important that we try and break the cycle. And the one great way that you can break the cycle is if you're able to get young girls to start working. Now, one of the problems, of course, was that, as I said, the ITIs are not there. So we then said, we will not take ITIs. We will take girls who are 10th pass. So we said, fine, we'll go. And we also went to some of the poorest parts of India. Chhattisgarh, Odisha, rural Telangana, all of those, got young girls there. Our objective was quite simple. And we realized that it's a 1 degree tilt early can make a huge change later on. So if done well, let's say you get a young girl from a rural area, you give her a job. One is her sense of self goes up dramatically. She's self-sufficient. Her position in her family goes up dramatically. Okay, she's suddenly earning probably much more than even her father or her brother certainly. Second, working in a Tata company adds to her social prestige quite dramatically.
Yes.
I mean, overall, if you see anybody who works in a good company, overall prestige changes dramatically. She then becomes a role model for other girls. Okay, so many others then kind of follow her. Because she's working, if she chooses to get married, A, she'll get married a little later. 2, she will get hopefully a slightly more educated groom. In turn, the children will be better educated. So what we saw is that giving a job to a girl from a rural background whose choices in life are limited can have a dramatic impact on society. So we've now, from having no women on our shop floor, on a base now of 11,000 employees, on the shop floor alone, which is about 2/3 of our base, we are at about 15% of our employees are women. In our engineering staff, which is the balance 1/3, we are close to about 20-25%. Has this changed lives? I would say dramatically. Each one of those girls, one is, of course, the fact that they're wearing a uniform, they come to work every day, there's a sense of purpose. The work that they do, they're doing work which is comparable, if not better than the best in the world. What it means for us is on the shop floor, of course, it's a challenge. There is an issue of physical strength. So when the girls first come, they're not able to do a lot of the work. So that was used again to what you said, the invisible barriers. A lot of our team के साथ वो नहीं हो रहा है उनसे, आप देखिए ना, मैं किसी और से करवा लेता हूँ, ऐसे नहीं. So then we actually started a program that we got them in. We started giving them nutritional supplements. Okay, so we didn't stop at that. We didn't say we don't take it as a given, because what I've seen, if you actually see a lot of parts of rural India, the women actually do the bulk of the agricultural work. If you go to parts of Himachal Pradesh, you or even Uttarakhand, women climb up mountains with. So if you tell me they're weak, I said, come on, I'm not so sure. The issue is they need a little nutritional supplements, and you provide them that. And second thing is we also treat them differently. And yes, we are treating them differently from the other boys that you come in, but we're doing it for a reason. Because we know that the societal impact it can have is dramatic. So we put them in a separate place, we create a separate hostel for them. We give them special classes in English, we give them special classes on life skills, how to manage their finances, many, many things. It takes us a little bit of time. It's a 2-year investment. But after that, the change is dramatic. First is, of course, discipline on our shop floor improves. With girls being there, our discipline actually improves. The boys are a little more careful about how they behave around them. It's counterintuitive, but it actually happens. Second, quality-wise, they're head and shoulders above. Third, there are certain tasks which in the aerospace industry which we need. We are zero defect. And zero defect means even it's beyond 6 sigma. So even and our tolerances are less than the breadth of a human hair. A lot of things we can't see, but the girls are able to pick up. The attention to detail is fabulous. To your question about feedback, now I don't want to say that it's perfect. See, at the end, we are, whatever changes we might have wanted to do, we are a microcosm of the society at large. They still operate with the burdens of the years that they have had. Do they completely speak up? I would like to say yes, but I know it's no. Do all the people, all the men on the shop floor treat them with the respect they deserve? I don't think so. It's a work in progress. It's something that we have to work upon. Is there casual sexism? Probably. What do we do when we find out? We are brutal about it. And I think to
Zero tolerance.
It's zero tolerance. And I think that we are very, very clear about. To your question about do women come up? Certainly, the women that are there in the offices, they're very, very open and forthright because that's a culture that we have built. That you can come and say it. And it's not just for women. Overall, I think we have been very, very particular that no kind of offensive remarks will be tolerated. Whether it's racial, gender, communal, caste, body, it's a non-negotiable. Okay. Has it happened? Of course it's happened. I've had senior colleagues who have made these usual my wife wears the pants kind of jokes, and women have not liked it. And one of my own executive assistant came and said, listen, on this whatever the company WhatsApp group, somebody put it on and said, listen, I felt uncomfortable. So I called up this guy and said, listen, don't do it. I know you may think it's funny, but a lot of other people don't see it as funny. So the key at the end, I think, is it perfect? No, it's not. But does it take away from trying to make an effort? No. I think it's really worth making the effort. A lot of the girls have actually moved on. They don't work with us anymore. If you have a chance, you must read Mr. Subroto Bagchi's book, where he's actually made mention of one of the girls who used to work on our shop floor. From just being a mechanic, she has become a quality supervisor now. Many of them have gone on to become leading sections of the plant. So it's gratifying.
What Masood is saying, and we can apply it to every sector, that when you have leaders at the top who are aware of the dynamics of gender, patriarchy, sexism, misogyny, and the whole gamut of these terms, when there is awareness at the top, they are the people who can actually bring about the change. But the problem happens when there is no awareness at the top levels, and they are unaware of it, and they don't even want to think of it or discuss it or give space for having conversations around it.
When we think about a solution kind of a thing, it's not that everything will happen overnight, but at least every day is a day where we work relentlessly towards our goals. But if you could suggest a solution wherein a woman's voice is there, she's not either heard or she's shunned down or she's snubbed. How do we respect her voice as well as take care that we disagree, but there's a way of telling it? So how do we do that?
And we allow her also
how do we
to
allow
disagree?
her also to disagree
Without feeling intimidated,
without feeling hurt or bad, but we still hear to what she says. So ఒక ఆఫీస్ స్పేస్లో, ఎస్పెషల్లీ ఒక ఆఫీస్ స్పేస్లో, మనం ఎందుకంటే ఆఫీస్ స్పేస్ అని ఎందుకు అంటున్నామంటే మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ యూ ఆర్ హెడింగ్ డిపార్ట్మెంట్స్ అండ్ ఇన్ యువర్ ఓన్ వేస్, అండ్ ఐఎమ్ ష్యూర్ అక్కడ కొంచెము ఆ కదలిక వస్తే ఇళ్లలో కూడా వస్తుంది. దే విల్ టేక్ బ్యాక్ హోమ్. This is what is happening in our office space, and we are benefiting out of it. So I need to make that change even at home. Annadi oka thought vastadi. Because Sharath said it starts at home ani. Let it start at home. Even if it doesn't start at home, office lo experiences tho enna intiki తీసుకెళ్ళొచ్చు కదా. It can be a reverse mechanism. I want you all to speak about this.
The first thing that we need to do is to be aware of it. As ma'am was saying, a lot of people క్యాజువల్ సెక్సిజం అన్నది సెక్సిస్ట్ జోక్స్ పాస్ చేసి అసలు నేను ఒక బ్యాడ్ జోక్ పాస్ చేశానని తెలియకుండానే ఇంటికి వెళ్ళిపోయి ప్రశాంతంగా పడుకుంటున్నారు చాలా మంది. దట్ అవేర్నెస్ ఇస్ ఓన్లీ నాట్ దేర్, దట్ దే డోంట్ ఈవెన్ నో, నోబడీ ఈస్ టెల్లింగ్ దెమ్ ఆర్ వాట్ ఇట్ ఇస్, బట్ ద హ్యూమర్ దట్ ఈస్ ల్యాండింగ్ బ్యాడ్లీ, దే ఆర్ నాట్ ఈవెన్ అవేర్ ఆఫ్ ఇట్, సో దే కంటిన్యూ డూయింగ్ ఇట్. ఐ థింక్ వీ షుడ్ ఆల్ బీ అవేర్ and very conscious about how we conduct ourselves, in especially in workplaces. And of course the change starts from home. It has to start from a very root level, which is to be sensitive to the other person's feelings. Like, that's at a very human level. It needs to happen. So I don't want to preach, because it never works. But I can tell you how I inculcated the habit of, like, I read a lot of women books. Books were authored by women, and I watch a lot of films that are made by women directors, and I always get very surprised, why didn't I see this perspective? Because women perspectives are something that like you told me that I write very nice women characters. I'm very scared of writing women characters. I'll be very honest with you. I still feel that I don't understand them enough. Probably you are seeing it because I'm sensitive to the fact that they might perceive it. So I'm running it through multiple women before I even decide to include it in my script. I read my whole script to my wife. I read my whole script to a bunch of women who I respect a lot in my life, and I'm always scared, am I putting a male lens on it? Especially when I'm writing women characters or the way the characters are speaking, and I give them the, like, as I said, my ears are fully open, and I sit for hours together. Let them tell. Even if they have to roast me, I'm okay with that. But I just want to make sure that probably you're feeling it. It's because of that. It's not because I understand women fully. Not yet. I'm not even close. Is what I believe. Yeah. That's why I'm still a little scared to write a fully women-centric film, because I'm scared that I'll put a male lens on it. So I think I need to age. I need to mature. There's a lot of time for me. I don't know if I'll even get there. But work is in progress is what I want to say. I think if we all believe that we are all work in progress, I think the change can start from there is what I strongly
Wonderful.
believe.
Sailaja, your point of view?
As leaders, I go back to this. Create a space where, if such behavior happens, we are able to call out, right? So if for example, you're talking Prema and somebody cuts, we'll say, let Prema finish. Then, as you said, the biggest thing which I find is a lady makes a point, there's no acknowledgement. Do you agree? Do you disagree? Nothing. It's like, what does that mean? Is the worst that anybody can tell you. Does it mean you agree or you're just brushing me off, right? Say, yeah, great point. Great point is less said to women. Great point is said more to men, right? I mean, that's statistically how it is. So I think one is that, to call out. Second, I find that, the moment you have even a comment, it's usually a comment, not even a joke, which is having some kind of, tenor to it. We just say, hey, listen, I don't think we are comfortable with that example. Can we pick another example? Then I'll give one. I think in a big one, a gentleman started talking and he said, this is like we go shopping. My wife is going from shop to shop and I'm sitting in the mall. And I'm sitting there and thinking, really, this is the example you find in a corporate environment. And I do want to clarify this. There's always this feeling that only women shop. Sorry, you take guys to car shops, bike shops, shoe shops. Guys shop, right? So it's about interest. So let's not generalize it. I think those kind of things, the moment you call out, and as ma'am said, most of them are not aware and they don't mean it. They genuinely don't mean it, but they have never been sensitized to it.
Exactly.
So when you call out and say, no, I don't think that's an appropriate example, can we pick something else, right? Because I don't associate with that. I don't associate with somebody tell me I take a lot of time shopping. No, I don't. I go and I pick and I come back. So, I just find that offensive. When you say that, they actually say, no, I didn't mean, and they never do it again. So calling out is important. Giving space is important. We always notice this, right? In any meeting, the people who first sit are men, right? The women kind of take the second. We actually tell, can we request all the women to come and sit in the front? Yeah. Right? And when you're in the front, we also want to say, okay, what do you have to say? Right? Give that space, because when people are talking, sometimes the women wait for the space. They wait for a pause to speak. The pause never happens, right?
Never comes.
Yeah. Never comes. So then you kind of say, okay, I've heard you. Great. Now, Prema, what do you think? That's a great way to, this is inclusion, right? Yes. I think what he spoke about was equity. There's also this inclusion and the inclusive atmosphere that we have to create. So I think as leaders, we have to notice, we have to call out the behaviors, and we also have to include everybody. So let everybody's voice be heard. I think that's very simple, but it's basic.
Yeah. Sharath?
2 points on this. One is that from where we come, right? Media, cinema. I feel our content is also a large part contributor to, because it actually shapes how the society is over a period of time. So I feel like stand with her. I know we're doing a lot of videos with a lot of actors and stuff. So I feel because we're talking about what can be done, of course, they've covered a bunch of points which are more internal. We as people have to change. We have to fix the situations that we are in. But I also feel at a larger level, we need to talk a little more in our films where people need to address these things. Even governments, right? There's so much talk happening about, say, drugs or these things. This is also something that's eating up the society, if not more than drugs, or as dangerous as that. So I feel somewhere I'm very happy that ma'am is doing this, but maybe because even in government, politicians, this is even more. And those are the people who make our policies. So I think a lot of awareness around this, because I think people who watch this talk, I think they'll change 5, 10, 20, 30%, right? So I feel communication is very, very important. Internalizing is one, but in a country like ours where survival is the main problem for many people, all these become a slightly luxury topics. So I feel it has to be more normalized. సినిమాల్లో కానీ, షోల్లో కానీ, టీవీ షోల్లో కానీ ఎక్కడో ఒక చిన్న చెక్ అనేది ఉండాలి. వాళ్ళని కూర్చోబెట్టి ఇవన్నీ చెప్పడం కానీ,
మాట్లాడుతూ
ఉంటే బికాజ్ ఓన్లీ అది 10 మంది మాట్లాడినప్పుడే అరే అది తప్పు అని తెలుస్తుంది, లేకపోతే అది చాప కింద నీరులా ఉంటుంది. సెకండ్ ఒపీనియన్ ఐ హ్యావ్ ఇస్ ఇట్స్ యాక్చువల్లీ ఎ సిల్వర్ లైనింగ్ అండ్ ఐ కీప్ సేయింగ్ దిస్ ఇన్ ఆఫీసెస్. ఇందాక మ్యామ్ కూడా అన్నారు బ్రీఫ్ కదా అని. ఒక అమ్మాయి, ఒక విమెన్ గట్టిగా డిసైడ్ అయ్యి కూర్చుంటే ఎవడు ఆపలేదు వాళ్ళు. లైక్ అంటే ఒక అమ్మాయి ఈరోజు అక్రాస్ ద టేబుల్ ఇన్ని చెప్పిన మనమే, మీరు డిసైడ్, ఐఎమ్ షూర్ యూ వుడ్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ సమ్మన్ లైక్ దాట్ ఫ్రమ్ వాట్ ఐ కెన్ మేక్ ఫ్రమ్ యువర్ ఎనర్జీ. ఒక అబ్బాయి కన్నా 10 times మోర్ పవర్ఫుల్ అవుతుంది. లైక్ 800 people ఎగ్జాంపుల్ మ్యామ్ చెప్పారు కదా, అక్కడ ఎంత మేల్ ఐపీఎస్ ఉన్నా చేయకపోతుండే. I would actually see it as because use it to our advantage, right? Because it's so counterintuitive. When you do that, it happens. So అంటారు కదా, ప్రపంచంలో ఎండనంతా ఆపలేం, మనం ఒక గొడుగు వేసుకోవచ్చు అని. I feel while this awareness, ఇవన్నీ ఇంటర్నల్ థింగ్స్ దట్ హ్యాపెన్, I feel women కూడా షుడ్ రియలైజ్ దట్ మనం నుంచుంటే ఎవడు ఆపలేడు. ఒక విమెన్ రోడ్ మీద నుంచి గట్టిగా మాట్లాడితే అందరు దూరం చదువుతారు. అది మన సొసైటీలో ఆ భయం అది ఉంది. సో ఐ ఫీల్ విమెన్ కూడా ఒకలాగా డిసైడ్, అండ్ all of you guys, right? Like all of you women who've come here came with your own internal thing. So I feel మనం అమ్మాయిలకి విమెన్కి కూడా చెప్పాలి దట్ నువ్వు ఒక్కసారి నుంచో గట్టిగా, నువ్వు ఒక్కసారి రివర్స్ మాట్లాడు, ఏమవుతుందో చూడు, ఏం కాదు. సో ఆ ఎనర్జీ, ఆ జోష్ మనం వాళ్ళకి ఇవ్వాలి. ఎంతసేపు మళ్ళీ ఇక్కడ మనం మెన్ మీదే అంటున్నాం, మీరు ఇట్లా చేయాలి అట్లా చేయాలని. అరే వాళ్ళు ఏం చేయలేరు. ఒక విమెన్ గట్టిగా డిసైడ్ అయ్యి ఒక వర్క్ ప్లేస్లో కానీ, రోడ్ మీద కానీ, ఇంట్లో కానీ, ఎక్కడన్నా ఒక సొసైటీలో నుంచి నేను ఇది చేస్తా అంటే పేరెంట్స్ని ప్రాబ్లీ ఎదురీలేరేమో, కొంచెం అది డిఫికల్ట్ సిచ్యువేషన్ అవుతుంది. అందుకనే ఇందాక కూడా పేరెంట్స్ మారాలి అని ఒకటి అన్న తప్ప, బయట సొసైటీలో అమ్మాయి గట్టిగా మాట్లాడితే అందరు నేనది చుప్పైపోతాను.
నైస్ పాయింట్ శరత్. నాకు నా ఓన్ ఎక్స్పీరియన్సెస్ ఎన్నో ఉన్నాయి వేర్ ఐ నో ఐ జస్ట్ పుట్ మై ఫుట్ డౌన్, ఐ స్టూడ్ అప్, ఐ సెడ్ ఐఎమ్ నాట్ గోయింగ్ టు డూ దిస్, ఐ విల్ డూ దిస్. కానీ ఎన్ని ఏళ్ళు పట్టింది టు గెట్ దేర్. అంటే ఇట్ వాస్ నాట్ ఈజీ ఫర్ మీ ఇన్ ద ఇనిషియల్ ఇయర్స్ ఆఫ్ మై కెరియర్ టు పుట్ మై ఫుట్ డౌన్, టు సే నో దిస్ ఇస్ నాట్ రైట్, దిస్ ఇస్ రైట్. I had to literally digamingi, then you get up and then you voice. So
but the good thing, it's a once in a generation thing.
Very
like
true.
ఈ ఒక్క జనరేషన్ మారిందంటే కింద నుంచి అంతా సార్ ఇందాకన్నట్టు క్యాస్కేడింగ్ ఎఫెక్ట్. ఆ ఫస్ట్ 15% హైర్ చేసిరంటే షాప్ ఫ్లోర్ లో ఇట్స్ అ క్యాస్కేడింగ్ ఎఫెక్ట్. సో అండ్ మనమే చూస్తున్నాం లాస్ట్ 10-15 years లో ఎంత మారిందో. సో it's a problem, but I'm very, very confident that with little changes in men, some assertiveness and some confidence, that also దానికి కూడా ప్రోగ్రామ్స్ చేయాలి. నువ్వు నిలబడి ఏమవుతుందో స్టాండ్ విత్ హర్, స్టాండ్ అప్ ఫర్ యువర్ సెల్ఫ్ అని కూడా ఒకటి చేయాలి. మనం ఎవరు ఆపలేరు అప్పుడు.
I keep telling this to Swati also, cut me some slack because I'm learning. I've grown up seeing my mom and dad and what the patriarchal nature that happens at home. It was so normalized, and generation during that time was like that. It was okay for my father to sit down and say our fans which but today it is inappropriate, it is insensitive, is what everybody agrees on. I have seen my dad and grew up, I was a kid, I was shaped up in that environment, and suddenly when I get married today, I'm expected not to do whatever I have seen growing up and which was normalized is not okay today. So we have to not just learn, we have to unlearn and then be somebody else. We are like, okay, fine, we're learning. I'm sure my son won't have this problem. Because I'm very sure that his generation probably will have much less of this problem because they would have been conditioned in that way. Because ma'am also says that 30 years back and now situations have become much better. Imagine somebody growing in that environment and then there's the next generation who's growing up in a much better environment. So
that's the main intention of this entire campaign, because constant గా రెగ్యులర్ గా కన్సిస్టెంట్ గా ఈ కాన్వర్జేషన్స్ జరగాలి, ఈ డెలిబరేషన్స్ అవ్వాలి, అందరి వాయిసెస్ బయటికి రావాలి అండ్ విని దాన్ని ఎగ్జిక్యూట్ చేయాలి. సో దట్ ఈస్ ద మెయిన్ ఇంటెన్షన్.
ఒక చిన్న ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ఏంటంటే, ఇన్ బిహార్ దేర్ వాజ్ అ స్మాల్ NGO విచ్ స్టార్టెడ్ వర్కింగ్ ఇన్ వన్ విలేజ్. And our village lo, the girls and boys, there's total segregation. They just don't talk to each other. So what they did is they put all the girls and the boys who are teenagers in one huge community hall and just left them. First few days nobody would talk to each other, asal maatladkoru. Then dheere thoda bahut, little bit of giggling and little, feeling shy and awkward and uncomfortable. Then they start talking to each other. After 3-4 months, the girls will tell the boys, तुम लोग वहाँ उस नुक्कड़ पे खड़े होके हम लोग को छेड़ते हो, हम लोग को अच्छा नहीं लगता. तो they said, really? But हम लोग को तो लगा था कि आप लोग को अच्छा लगता है, इसलिए हम करते हैं. So suddenly the conversation changed and the eve teasing in that village stopped totally. Why? Only as a result of this conversation. So taking up on this, we introduced gender conversations. I did it in Mehboob district, and then later on we carried it out in another force in another conflict area with 28,000 men. Here we had only men talking to men about gender, about how patriarchy affects their lives, not just the lives of the women around them. And we suddenly found that as a result of these conversations, the dynamics between the husband and wife changed first. Because he started understanding her better, he started understanding her point of view better. So after that particular 2-year program that we carried out, thousands of men bought scooties for their wives, making them mobile, and said that, okay, now you take care of these, household works. They asked the wives to start attending parent-teacher meetings, which in that area the wives would not do because they would stay at home and only take care of the kids. Then they started teaching their wives how to use the UPI ID for online purchases, which was impossible. He always had to control the purse before that, but now he started giving her that bandwidth to actually do the purchases. So we found beautiful changes just as a result of conversations, and that's why Stand With Her campaign, the purpose is to have these conversations to bring about change.
Actually, a very interesting data point. There's a startup that works, that does some work, but one data point that the founder was sharing with me was, don't hold me on the number, but the majority, say 60-70% in the range of men at the age of 18 have not spoken to any women outside of their family. And
very interesting.
చాలా హిట్టింగ్ పాయింట్ అయింది. మీరు అన్నట్టు అసలు ఈ రోజు మనం ఇన్ని మాట్లాడుతున్నాం కదా, ఇప్పుడు ట్విట్టర్లో ఇంతమంది ఇంత చెత్త మాట్లాడతారు కదా, వాళ్ళలో కొంతమందిని కలుస్తుంటాం, ఇవన్నీ జరుగుతుంటాయి. వాడు వాడి లైఫ్లో ఒక అమ్మాయితో మాట్లాడున్నాడు. అందుకు ఆడికి అసలు వాళ్ళు ఎట్లా ఫీల్ అవుతారు, ఆడికి మాక్సిమం వాళ్ళ అమ్మ వాళ్ళ ఇంట్లో ఎవరన్నా కొంచెం అక్క చెల్లి ఉంటే కొంచెం బెటర్, కానీ అబ్బాయిలు ఉన్న హౌస్ అయితే అది కూడా లేదు. ఇఫ్ లైక్ ఇట్స్ డాడ్ మామ్ 2 sons 3 sons, వాడికి ఆ సెన్సిటివిటీ కూడా లేదు. 18 years వచ్చేసరికి ఆడ అసలు ఒక అమ్మాయితో కూడా మాట్లాడలేదు. అలాంటి వాడిని మీరు బయట సొసైటీలో ఒక ఆఫీస్లో వేస్తున్నాం, ఒక సినిమా ఇండస్ట్రీలో వేస్తున్నాం, లేకపోతే ఒక పోలీస్ ఫోర్స్లో వేస్తున్నారు, లేకపోతే ఇంకెక్కడో వేస్తున్నారు. వాడికి తెలియదు అసలు. సో ఇప్పుడు కొన్ని యాప్స్ అవి వస్తున్నాయి డబ్బులు గట్ట అమ్మాయిలతో అది మాట్లాడడానికి. వాళ్ళు అక్కడ ఫస్ట్ టైం మాట్లాడుతున్నారంట. ఇది అలాంటి ఒక యాప్ వాడు నాకు చెప్పింది, ఏంద్రా మీ బిజినెస్ అంటే, ఎందుకు చేస్తున్నావు ఈ బిజినెస్, అసలు డబ్బులు ఇచ్చి అమ్మాయిలతో మాట్లాడడం ఏంటి తప్పు కదా అంటే, వాడు చెప్పాడు, అరే బాసు 70% మందికి ఇది ఫస్ట్ టైం, వాళ్ళు అసలు ఫస్ట్ టైం మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. దానిలో చాలా మంది నాకు నెక్స్ట్ ఇయర్ పెళ్లి అంటారు, నేను అమ్మాయితో ఎప్పుడు మాట్లాడలే, అసలు ఎట్లా మాట్లాడాలి అని మాట్లాడుతున్నారు. అండ్ ద ఓన్లీ థింగ్ దే నో ఇస్ ఫ్రమ్ ఫిల్మ్స్.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is very dangerous.
Very true.
Because
very true.
We know working in films that not everything we see in film is actually true, right? Like in fact, most of the things are not true. That's why we make a film, to take them into a different world.
In fact, this was all a problem all our lives, that our subordinates didn't know how to handle a woman in power, and our seniors also didn't know how to handle a woman in power.
I think I'm very happy to see both of them here who are able to talk about the media and films. Right? In fact, the first time I said, sorry, నేను మీ సినిమాలు చూడలేదండి అని చెప్పాను. This is one of the reasons, right? I cannot see the objectification of women in the media. Many of our movies actually propagate eve teasing is cool, right? Adedo pursuit, ఈ pursuit లో there is a high. Pursuit అక్కర్లేదమ్మా, she knows whether she wants or not. No చెప్పేస్తున్నామే.
అంటే అదే కదా, అంటే పించ్ చేస్తే అమ్మాయి will fall in love with you.
It
So
is
అలాంటివి
gross.
మూవీస్ ఉంటే అది
It is, you know,
toxic.
in probably Gen Z language, it is you. Gross.
Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
Right? But that is what it is. So what the films propagate, the objectification, ఈ 70mm screen లోని, the way they are shown.
Yes.
నేను చూడడం మానేశానండి. తెలుగు భాష చాలా ఇష్టంగానే సినిమాలు చూడలేను. పెద్ద అయిన కొడుకుతో చూడలేను. సో ఐ హ్యావ్ ఆల్ దీస్ కండిషన్స్, రైట్? సో ఎన్ని సినిమాలు చూడగలను నేను? దెన్ మా మదర్ చక్కగా సీరియల్స్ చాలా చూస్తారు, రైట్? అండ్ విత్ ఆల్ డ్యూ రెస్పెక్ట్, అందులో వర్క్ చేసే అమ్మాయి అయితే స్లీవ్లెస్ బ్లౌజ్ వేసుకుంటుంది, రైట్? ఇంట్లో ఉన్న వాళ్ళేమో పద్ధతిగా చీర కట్టుకొని, నగలు బోల్డ్ వేసుకొని, ఎవరి ఇంట్లో నగలు వేసుకుంటారో నాకు తెలియదు కానీ వేసేసుకొని దిగేసుకొని కూర్చొని, ఒక్కొక్క ఇంట్లో 5 ఆడవాళ్ళు ఉంటారు, వాళ్ళందరూ దే ఆర్ కాన్స్టెంట్లీ స్కీమింగ్ అండ్ మ్యానిపులేటింగ్. అండ్ ఐమ్ థింకింగ్ విచ్ ఉమెన్ హ్యాస్ దట్ కైండ్ ఆఫ్ టైమ్? Now that has to change. Why do you assume that a woman going to corporate is usually she's the villain? Right? The working lady is the villain. ఆమెకట్లా ఒక పాములా ఒక బొమ్మ పెడతారు, ఒక ఇగో మీ కాస్ట్యూమ్ డిజైనర్ ఎవరో యు ఆర్ టాకింగ్
dark lipstick.
ఎందుకు ఇది? What is this that you're trying to portray? Right? I know, in fact I see that any woman who is working to me is above normal, because she is juggling a home life, she is juggling kids, she is juggling elderly parents, she is juggling corporate life, and she is trying to manage all this in a very, non-disruptive way. So దాన్ని తీసుకొని ఇట్లా portray చేస్తావు. So I think if we have to talk about societal change, then everyone has to change. But commercially what makes value? But I think last point I do want to make, if through this, ma'am, if we can emphasize on financial independence.
Yes.
Both financial literacy and independence. Even today, working women, this is a real example. వాళ్ళ ఇంటికి వెళ్ళి డబ్బులు ఇచ్చేస్తారు, అత్తగారికి ఇస్తారు లేకపోతే హస్బెండ్కి ఇస్తారు. 80% of the financials are typically managed by the man. There are about 20% women who know financials, who know how to manage. To me, that's a big issue, right? If you can make them financially literate and financially independent, I think we would be able to move the needle a little bit.
చాలా సేఫ్ గా ముందే మీ సినిమాలు నేను చూడలేదని చెప్పారు కాబట్టి నాకు ప్రాబ్లం లేదు. బట్ మీరు ఏ సినిమాలు చూసారో తెలియదు కానీ, బట్ ఐ కెన్ ప్రామిస్ యూ that the Telugu film industry is going in the right direction, because a lot of young filmmakers are coming in and they are very promising, and we are very sensitive to what women feel. There are a bunch of filmmakers. If you want, I can send you a list of those filmmakers. And please do watch films, ma'am. Movies, don't shut the gates on movies, ma'am, because I'll tell you, movies yield a lot of power in making people feel a certain way. The first time I realized the power of movies is when I was a kid. And I still get emotional when I talk about it. I was sitting and watching Sagar Sangamam movie, and Kamal Haasan sir and Jayapradha ma'am are there. She's giving an invitation to him and he's checking his own name in that, and he cries, and I cried on that day. And I understood how what kind of emotional impact movies can have. Recently Nani sir and I were sitting and talking. Nobody acknowledges this, but and this is what Nani sir was telling me. In the last 200 years of history, I think movies are probably one of the best inventions, because men feel certain things only relying on movies. As you said, we don't know what a mother goes through. That knowledge comes from oka mother sentiment cinema చూస్తే మదర్ అందులో ఎలా ఫీల్ అవుతుందో చూసి నేను నేర్చుకుంటున్నాను, నా మదర్ ఇలా ఫీల్ అవుతారా అని. ఎందుకంటే మూవీస్ హోల్డ్ దట్ పవర్, మ్యామ్. ప్లీజ్ డోంట్ షట్ యువర్ గేట్స్ ఆన్ దట్. A bunch of new filmmakers, youngsters have come in, and they are telling stories which are very sensible. Please watch those movies. I believe that in fact, if you can come out and educate the filmmakers as well, sometimes if we can just sit down and have sessions like these. And like coincidentally, tomorrow I'm going to shoot a scene where my hero is meeting the heroine for the first time, and he goes and talks to her. Probably this meeting would impact the way I'm going to treat that scene a little differently. Tonight I might go back and sit down and look at it again and say, oh yeah, maybe I could make it a better, maybe I should make it a more I wouldn't say morally correct, because in movies we don't get to do morally correct stuff all the time. We do have to show certain things that may not fall in place, but we redeem the characters. We ultimately try to tell a good story. That's what we are trying to tell. But I'm saying that you should also have interaction with the younger bunch of filmmakers, and having these kind of interactions would shape the way we think also. It might have an impact on the way we write, and it would directly impact the way society is
Yeah.
watching these films and
And I was very intrigued by what you said about financial independence, and I think it is a superpower. Because if women are financially independent, they can make much better choices. And I have seen many women getting stuck in bad marriages, not able to get out, primarily because they can't. And the husband then weaponizes money to control the woman. So I think as parents, if there's one thing that we can do for our children is to make sure they're financially independent. And also in a form shape their choices to the extent that you move them towards career choices that make them financially independent. Other thing about what leaders can do, I think there's immense power that each one of us has leaders. You just need to realize the power that you have, and there's a huge amount of change that you can do, and you need to act upon it. It means sometimes that you have to stretch your own boundaries, which you must.
So before we end, I have two rapid fire questions. Two rapid fire.
This is the most dreaded part of Prema ma'am's interviews because I do it all. I've done like 4 or 5 interviews for her, and this is the most dreaded part. You guys be very careful, okay?
No. This is very nice actually. Okay. So what is that one micro behavioral change that you can bring in your own lives and your own personal lives that will really create an impact in some form or the other?
So, Prema, what I would like to do primarily is to call out inappropriate behavior everywhere and not tolerate it anymore. Whether even it's with me, whether it's mansplaining with me or anything with me. Now I've started drawing boundaries more clearly. And I feel that calling out, whether it's sexism, whether it is, some sort of gender, patriarchal double standards, for example. I remember recently I saw one of my batchmates scolding his subordinates for not doing their work. So everybody is very odd. Oh, sir is very angry. But when I scold my subordinates for not doing something, I'm considered emotional. So I find a lot of patriarchal double standards at workplace, and I've now started calling this out. So I feel that the first step in bringing about a change and in changing attitudes and bringing awareness amongst people around me is by calling out.
Okay. Sailesh?
I feel situational and emotional awareness is something that it's a way of being. It cannot just come like that. What the hack that I have been following is I respect my wife a lot, like because I'm a filmmaker today. I'm where I am today because of my wife. I always think, what if Swati was subjected to this? Then I would not be able to do something that's inappropriate, even if I intend to. Even I know I wouldn't, but even if I wanted to be mean to someone, I wouldn't be, is what I feel. And also, this is one thing that I wanted to tell. Men feel very intimidated when a woman is giving off that kind of a feminist energy. Okay, somewhere feminism has become a bad term. Okay, feminism has become, and we use, and a lot of men, when they're talking feminism, this is there. Okay, what I see is, I think this is an adjustment process. I guess what is happening right now is women are finding a need to speak up for themselves. Until the equilibrium is achieved, I think this friction will be there. And I think we should not judge them when they are speaking up for themselves. We should not feel that, that they are intimidating, or, oh, she's too difficult to work with. No, let them, like, it's that's what I keep saying. Listening is the best thing that you can do, and don't form a judgment. Let it be. The equilibrium will be achieved in some time. It's
pendulum is oscillating actually. It'll come back to the center.
It will reach there. Once it reaches there, it'll be very blissful, because I have lived in the Western society where I think even there the pendulum is still oscillating, but at a much lower pace is what I feel. And so since I've seen it, I know it.
Lift other women up. I think we are very quick to judge, to critique. We somehow want to, overtly tell them this is how it is. That's okay. To me, I always say this, right? I see that the woman is like a sun in a solar system. There are multiple things which she's managing. Home, what we were talking about. Second thing is that glow of the sun is what keeping everything alive, right? There's no home which says they're happy when the wife is away. In fact, everybody says we miss her. The house feels very empty, right? So that's a power. So to me, this tiny suns we have in our society, if we can actually somehow make them shine to their fullest, I think it will do a lot, which means we need a lot more women to call out, or a lot more women to feel confident that we can make others uncomfortable, which is what you are referring, right? That they are comfortable making others uncomfortable. I think if we can encourage that at scale, that itself will bring a society. And let us, as women, I think as women, I would like to encourage and ask all the women, please do not badmouth another woman. Right? There is enough that everybody is dealing with. You know, I think he made a point, right? Gossip మొదలెట్టేదే ఆడవాళ్ళు, right? Oh, ఇది నేను I always call it as sour grapes. That scenario, remember? మనకు దొరకలేదు అనుకో, ఆ దొరికిన వాళ్ళకి ఏదో ఉంటుంది, చార్మ్, లక్, ఏదో ఒకటి పెడతాం. We attribute some kind of characteristics instead of saying that person is actually more competent and hence more deserving. That's a very tough statement to make. But I think if women can stop, you know, bad mouthing other women, restricting other women, trying to kind of preach to other women. In fact, I think Taylor Swift called, right? Women are the custodians of patriarchy. This is a statement she made, that women have been the custodians of patriarchy.
Absolutely.
So let's not be. Let's not be, right? I think that to me, as every woman, if we can make a change, then 50% of the problem is solved, right? Because we have 50% of the population.
The important thing is having the sensitivity, particularly as a man, to be able to step out of one's whatever cocoon and see yourself from the perspective of the other gender, other race, other community is very, very important. And particularly as a leader, to be able to have that empathy is always going to be a work in progress. And so if I had to look at doing something, that would be one thing, because as you get to understand somebody else's pain better, you are able to relate and then do something about it. It is that every human being has a right to exist as an individual. You may not agree or empathize entirely with them, but it's a view they have. And so if you're able to move away from your traditional mindset, which is based on preconceived notions, and put yourself in the eyes of the other person, suddenly their struggle and what they're fighting over becomes very, very different. So I think that's a constant challenge, and how one is able to move away from our own sphere of thinking and put yourself in somebody else's sphere of thinking would, I think, be something that I would personally work on.
Yeah. Sharath.
No, me, I think most of them covered most of the things, but I think two things that I am doing, but this is probably a reminder that we should do it a little harder, is one, I want to, any women I meet at work or wherever, I actually do this also. I keep reminding them that they have to stand up for themselves, because this change will take 10 years. So you can't wait for 10 years. So you have to stand up, be it your family, be it your parents, relatives, colleagues, whoever it is, just stand up and it'll all get sorted, like I just said. And the second thing I think is, one thing that I want to do a little more is definitely calling out, like Charu ma'am said, but in our own ways. Obviously class week not under one thing I generally say is అట్లా ఎవరైనా చేస్తే చీప్ గా బిహేవ్ చేయకని చెప్తాను, బికాజ్ అది కనిపించాలి ఇది చీప్ బిహేవియర్ అని. ఒక అమ్మాయి గురించి ఏమనంటే ఇది తప్పు అని చెప్తే వేరు, కానీ అరే చిల్లరగా బిహేవ్ చేయకు అంటాను. అట్లా ఇంకా ఆమె గురించి అట్లా మాట్లాడడం చీప్ రాను. ఏమన్నా గాసిప్ అది చేస్తే చీప్గా బిహేవ్ చేయకరా. So that's my way of how I deal with it. So I think I want to double down on it a little bit, because men have to understand that that's cheap, and women have to understand that they are a lot more precious than who they think they are, and they're a lot more powerful than who they think they are. So I think these are the two reminders to these two genders that I want to keep. And obviously there will be all of this in me also. There will be sexism in me. All these are there in us also, which I think over time, through introspection, with right women in our life, we'll also be taught our own lessons.
Yes.
Prema, what would you do?
మీరు చెప్పాలి అసలు.
నేను యాక్చువల్గా ఇలాంటి కాన్వర్జేషన్స్ ఇంకా ఎక్కువ చేయాలనుకుంటున్నాను, సో దట్ దీనివల్ల చాలా సెన్సిటైజేషన్ చేయొచ్చు అని. ఈ కాన్వర్జేషన్స్ వల్ల రియలీ ఐ థింక్ ఎక్కడో చోట అట్లీస్ట్ 1-2% మందిలో కదలికొచ్చు, కైండ్ ఆఫ్ చిన్న చేంజ్ వచ్చినా దట్ రియల్లీ
జస్ట్ టు యాడ్, మేము 2016-17 we started a channel called Girl Formula. The idea was of the women by the women for the women types concept. దానిలో మేము లైక్ పీరియడ్స్ కావచ్చు, ఇంకోటి జస్ట్ విమెన్ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ చెప్పేవాళ్ళు. జస్ట్ ఇట్స్ నాట్ ఈవెన్ అ బిగ్ డీల్, లైక్ మోస్ట్ ఆఫ్ us know it like at the back of our hand. ఎంతమంది ఓహో ఇట్లుంటుందా, ఓహో వాళ్ళు అసలు ఇలా ఉంటారా, బికాస్ ఇందాక నేను చెప్పిన డేటా పాయింట్ 60-70% have never interacted with the women outside of their house. వాడికి అసలు అమ్మాయి అంటే వాళ్ళకి అసలు ఒక ఇమేజ్ ఉంటుంది అంతే, అదొక ఆబ్జెక్టిఫికేషన్ అనండి, మిస్గైడెడ్ ఇమేజ్ అనండి. సో ఐ ఫీల్ వన్ కాల్ దట్ ఫ్రమ్ దిస్ షో I want to give to young creators, especially girls and all, is మీరు కూడా సటిల్గా ఇవన్నీ చెప్తూ ఉండాలి. వాళ్ళు కూడా వెళ్ళి అందరూ వ్యూస్ కోసం వీడియోలు చేయడం కాదు. ఇది అలా అని చెప్పి పని కట్టుకుని క్లాసులు బిగితే ఎవరినరు, కానీ వెరీ సటిల్గా వెరీ క్యాజువల్గా ఒక బిహేవియర్ ఎలా ఉండాలి, హౌ ఇట్స్ కూల్ టు బీ అ సర్టన్ వే అండ్ నాట్ కూల్ టు బీ అ సర్టన్ వే అనేది. బికాజ్ ఈ మధ్య జెన్జీకి అది ఎక్స్టర్నల్ వ్యాలిడేషన్ కోసం చాలా చేస్తున్నాం అందరం. సో ఐ ఫీల్ అది కూడా ఎక్కడో మనం ఇండివిజువల్స్ చేసే యూజర్ కాంటెంట్ ద్వారా, మీలాంటి వాళ్ళు మాట్లాడడం ద్వారా, మేబీ మోర్ యాక్టర్స్ అండ్ పాపులర్ వాయిసెస్ టాకింగ్ అబౌట్ దీస్ థింగ్స్, మనం చెప్తే ఒకటి, ఒక సూపర్ స్టార్ చెప్తే అది 100x ఎక్కువ వాల్యూమ్లో వినిపిస్తుంది. సో ఎక్కడో ఇవన్నీ కన్సిస్టెంట్గా అవుతా ఉంటే మీలాంటి వాళ్ళు ఈ ఎఫర్ట్స్ని ఇంకా స్కేల్ అప్ చేస్తే విని 4 సార్లు వింటే పీపుల్ విల్ చేంజ్.
సో ద సెకండ్ క్వశ్చన్ ఈజ్, మీ జీవితాల్లో మీరు వెన్ డిడ్ యూ స్టాండ్ విత్ వన్ పర్సన్, ఒక స్టోరీ, ఒక్క అనెక్డోట్ వేర్ యూ స్టూడ్ విత్ సమ్వన్, అలాగే మీరు కూడా, హూ ఇస్ దట్ మ్యాన్ హూ స్టూడ్ విత్ యూ when you really needed the most?
The top of the mind I have is always my father.
Okay.
Right? And I always say this when I meet men who are fathers to daughters, that the way she is going to shape up, you have a disproportionate role to play as a father to a girl. He told me never to compromise on my values and principles. Whenever I was in a difficult situation where I felt, I could not continue. Example was my first marriage.
Yeah.
It's okay because he's seen. He never gave me this adjust అయిపోవాలి, ఏమనుకుంటారు, లోగ్ ఏమనుకుంటారు, ఆ డైలాగ్ ఎక్కడా నాకు రాలేదు. He says, no, I see that, it's not, it's okay, you take the step, I'm with you. Third thing which he told me, I finished my engineering, I got a job. ఆయన చాలా క్లియర్గా చెప్పాడు, చూడమ్మా నేను ఎవరిని నీకోసం జాబ్ అని అడగను, నేను ఎవరికి డబ్బులు ఇవ్వను, సో యూ గాట్ ద జాబ్, నేను ఇంతకన్నా నేను నిన్ను చదివించలేను, ప్లీజ్ గో గెట్ స్టార్టెడ్. దేర్ అడ్వైస్ ఆల్వేస్ హ్యావ్ బీన్ నెవర్ లీవ్ ద జాబ్. The financial independence, right? And that financial independence has helped me take a lot more decisions, has kind of given a sense of purpose. So I think these are very important. నాకు ఇంట్లో ఎప్పుడు నువ్వు రొట్టెలు చేయడం నేర్చుకోవాలి కదా, రేపు పెళ్ళైతే నీకు ఎట్లా అవుతుంది, ఇట్లాంటి డైలాగ్ నాకు ఎవరు ఇవ్వలేదండి. సో I actually had a shock when I went into society, like he said, right, where people say పని రాకపోతే ఎట్లాగా. Especially after 20, the whole home discussion for girls becomes marriage.
Yeah.
Right? Marriageability becomes the point. How marriageable is she? Whether it is how she looks, how she conducts herself, do you know, ఇదేంటి ఇంట్లో రోబో ట్రైన్ చేస్తున్నావా నువ్వు, అంట్లు బాగా తోముతావా, వంట బాగా వండుతావా, బట్టలు బాగా చేస్తావా? No, I think that narrative has to stop. And I think that is where parents have a big role to play. But I think I look back, the confidence, there are many mentors who stood by me. There are many mentors who spoke for me in the room when I was not there, and I'm super grateful. Right, when opportunities were there, and I will say this, it was like, Tanaka, are you sure you can do this? And there was always a man who said, oh damn right, she can do it. In fact, she'll do it better than me. So I know those mentors, and they've always been that guiding force that, you go and talk to them. It's like I call them my personal board of directors, right? Who say, look, Sailaja, this works for you. This doesn't work for you. You should not do this. They'll give you that very unbiased, unfiltered thing. I think you need that. And all of them have been men.
Yeah.
So this is where allyship is, right? That these people have kind of invested in ensuring that the career decisions are there. So there are all those mentors, but I think my first mentor and my best continues to be my father.
Okay. Masood garu, what about you?
No, a few of them. One is, of course, standing by my daughter when she was deciding on her life choices. So that was one. Second was standing by a friend of ours who was going or is still going through a messy separation. That's a tough one. That was a second. The third one, which I'd kind of spoken in my initial comments about this young girl.
Yes.
And I was just struck by what you just mentioned about this entire arranged marriage game, that you end up minimizing an individual to certain criteria which do not reflect the entire individuality. I mean, you bring them down to 3-4 behaviors about how homely they are they fair, what are they, many things. But you don't respect the person for what they are. So in my own way, I've tried to help her have an alternate path. And I was actually struck by the conversation that she had with my wife. We had just met over dinner. And so my wife told this young girl, listen, I hope you find a good job and you're able to be independent and do what you like. And she said, you're the first one who said this. Everybody else who meets me says, I hope you find a good boy who you can get married to. She said, how can they minimize me to become an adjunct to somebody else.
Yeah.
Because so these are small things that you try and do. So these are the 3-4 instances.
Wonderful. Yes, Sharath.
I mean, I tried, and there's not one incident because that's something we keep doing, but I remember a lot of incidents because I was over the last 10-12 years company naduptunna, and most of our, like Sailaja garu also said, our 20s ఏజ్ అంతా మ్యారేజబిలిటీకి వెళ్ళిపోతుంది కదా. సో ఐ హ్యావ్ ఫేస్డ్ అ లాట్ ఆఫ్ సినారియోస్ విత్ గర్ల్స్ ఇన్ మై ఆఫీస్ హు ఆర్, అంటే నా బాధ ఏంటంటే వాళ్ళు అంత బాగా పనిచేసి పెళ్ళని వెళ్ళిపోతున్నారు, ఇన్ని ఇయర్లు ట్రైన్ చేసుకుని అల్లరే ఇదేంద్ర బాబు అని, అది కూడా మళ్ళీ యూఎస్ సంబంధాలు అది అని. సో వన్ థింగ్ దట్ ఐ చాలా ఓపెన్గా కాన్షియస్లీ డూ ఇస్ ఐ టాక్ చాలా సినారియోస్ ఐ స్పోక్ టు దేర్ పేరెంట్స్, కూర్చుని అంకుల్ ఇట్లా కాదు మీరు ఎందుకు ఇట్లా చేస్తున్నారు. సో వాళ్ళు ఎంతవరకు వింటారో నాకు తెలియదు, బట్ ఐ ఫీల్ one thing that I always try to do that I can remember on top of my head is, and memory is that ఎవరు ఏ సిచ్యువేషన్లు ఉన్నా, ఎందుకంటే దానికి ఏదో చిన్న సిల్లీ రీజనే ఉంటుంది, ఆ పర్స్పెక్టివ్ ఇవ్వచ్చా, లేకపోతే కాన్షియస్లీ టెలింగ్ పేరెంట్స్ ఆఫ్ విమెన్ ఇన్ మై ఆఫీస్ సేయింగ్ అరే మీ డాటర్ చాలా వాళ్ళు ఇంత చేసినా ఇంత చెప్పి కొంచెం దే షుడ్ ఆల్సో, బికాస్ ఎక్స్టర్నల్ వ్యాలిడేషన్ వస్తే వాళ్ళకు కూడా అరే నా కూతురు ఏదో వీళ్ళు ఇంతమంది ఇంత చెప్తున్నారంటే ఏదో ఉందన్న ఫీలింగ్ వస్తుంది. సో జనరలీ ఐ డీల్ విత్ సినారియోస్ లైక్ దిస్, జస్ట్ ట్రై టు కైండ్ ఆఫ్, ఎందుకంటే ఇట్స్ అ మూడ్. If parents feel my daughter is able, they'll treat her differently. If they feel I'm a came, they'll treat her differently. So one thing I've done many times in my life is tell the parents that your son or daughter, in more cases daughter, she's very good. Yeah. She's actually amazing. Koncham exaggerate just good chepta because I know that will impact her this thing in home. So I think little things like this, major standing ups, I don't know if I've ever done. I would have, I can't remember, but I'm sure.
You must have done, maybe you don't remember.
Yeah, I just
Yes, Sailesh.
I think stood with Swati when she decided she didn't want to change her surname
Okay.
after the marriage, and there was a discussion about it at home, but yeah, the decision was respected, and we kind of, I remember standing with her on that one. So yeah, so she's a Swati Vemula. She didn't want to be Swati Kolanu, and I'm okay with that. So yeah,
Nice.
Interesting, right? You bring it up. See, that's a very important point. We associate ourselves through our identity, and name change is a big part. Name change, address change, and that is what I'm saying. Marriage is a very significant milestone. ఈ పేరు మార్చేస్తున్నారు, ఇల్లు మార్చేస్తున్నారు, నువ్వు ఇక్కడేమో 10 గంటలకు లేస్తే అమ్మ చక్క కాఫీ ఇస్తుంది, అది తీసేస్తున్నారు, రైట్? నువ్వు చేసుకుంటే తప్ప నీకు దిక్కు లేదు కాఫీకి టీకి తప్ప, రైట్? ఇంకోటి నువ్వే చేసుకోవడం కానీ 10 మందికి చేయాలి, రైట్? ఎవరింటికి వచ్చినా వాళ్ళు టీ అంటారు, మనం పెడతా ఉంటాం, ఆ వెదర్ టీ అవుతూనే ఉంటుంది ఇంట్లో. సో టు మీ, ఇఫ్ పీపుల్ కెన్ ఈవెన్ అప్రిషియేట్ దట్, వై ఆర్ యూ ఫోర్సింగ్ సంబడి టు గో త్రూ అన్ ఐడెంటిటీ చేంజ్? ఇజంట్ ఇట్ సంథింగ్ that somebody should enter with wide eyes, dreams and happiness? Instead నువ్వు ఇట్లా ఇన్ని రూల్స్ పెట్టి, ఇట్లా ఒక బాగా ఎగిరే పక్షిని తీసుకెళ్ళి ఒక చిన్న జైల్లో పెట్టి, ఇప్పుడు ఈ జైలే నీ ప్రపంచం అని చెప్పి, I don't know, that concept of marriage I don't understand. I'm not against it, right? But I think maybe how we are approaching marriage in our society is a completely different debate. I think that is required. I'm glad, I'm one of those who never changed my name. I refuse to.
there is I feel there is an unreasonable expectation of the girl to come into a new home and settle in just like that. I think that is where the maximum support system should kick in, because imagine if I just pick you up from India, put you in some foreign country and say, and you have to do your stuff, then I'm sure there is a settling in period, but most I've seen in my circle, most of my friends and relatives and all, అమ్మాయి ఇంటికి వచ్చిన వారానికే గొడవలు స్టార్ట్ అవుతాయి, అది చేయలేదు. Cut some slack, everybody needs some time to settle into a family. That is when the support system should kick in, is what I believe. The standing with, and it happens in every home. In every home there is a girl who is going to come in at one point in time, and I believe that again the emotional sensitivity and situational awareness, if you have, all the patriarchy and all the casual sexism and all that can be very comfortably avoided if you are just being that person who can.
No, when you're saying this, and I remember how it just happened seamlessly for me. I didn't even had this thought of asking. 32 years back when I got married, I was Vanam and I remained Vanam. That's my surname. And my husband didn't ask, I didn't tell him, or it was not that there was a permission given or granted. It just happened. And I remained. So now when you're saying, oh, you need to ask, okay, I didn't even know that I need to ask, and it was not a permission at all. It just happened.
So I must give a little flip on this. So
Yeah.
we were doing a leadership seminar for the armed forces, and we actually came on this question of surnames. And I think one of the co-moderators actually started going around the room and saying, yeah, you've asked your wife to take your surname. Have you thought about taking her surname? And it caused absolute panic in the room. And he said, how can I be Mr. whatever Sushila? Because when you are introduced, it is always, oh, this is Mrs. Masood. So he said, are you okay being introduced as Mr. Ashana? So it's a question to ask. And the other question that we had asked is, we talk about all these big things, but how will you react if your child came and wanted to have an intercaste marriage? And I think that also made the room very, very silent. It's all okay to externalize it, other it, but when it becomes personal, it's very different. Are you okay changing your name? Forget about your wife. I agree. But will you change your name? Will a man do it?
Recently, I did an interview with Nikolai Sachdev, who is the husband of Varalakshmi Sharath Kumar. Varalakshmi Sharath Kumar is a very renowned actress in Tamil Nadu. And he changed his name. His name is Nikolai Varalakshmi Sharath Kumar Sachdeva. So I was like,
Very interesting.
what?
Very
I
interesting.
was like, wow. That's
So
amazing.
Yeah. So Prema, I think I've not had just one pillar of support. There have been multiple pillars of support. So apart my parents and my sisters, and I have a brother-in-law and my spiritual mentors. So at each stage in life, when I was struggling to navigate through professional and personal choices, these were the ones who kept telling me that what I was doing was actually the right thing. So validation is somewhere, maybe I was looking for validation that I've taken this decision, and am I doing right, or is this going to backfire or boomerang? And so the validation which I received from them actually gave me the strength and courage to push on.
I feel today I am where I am because of all those lovely and beautiful men who stood by me. It could be my dad, my husband, my brother, and also in the organizations where I worked. There were situations when, I had to go to Maoist areas. I had to cover faction colonies and all. And I was stopped. I was said, some of the colleagues, they said, how do you go? Are you sure? Will you go? And all. But my boss said, yes, she can go. So, and that gave me strength when, I was told. And when I started my entrepreneurial journey, my dad said, you can do it because you are capable and you have a great network. You can start it off. So these kind of, validation, when it comes, that really gives power. And
I think it's all about that, right? At the end of the day, if you can tell somebody, hey, you can do it.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that
Exactly.
just
That
solves
gives a lot of
everything.
power.
I
Yes.
think all of us have,
Yes.
men, women have enough power in us to do things if somebody believes in us. So I think that's the core at all of this. If we believe that women can do everything in the same way like the men can, or even better, I think that solves everything. I think it's just a switch in many of our
Thank you
heads.
so much. It was a very, very wonderful conversation we had, and I'm sure this will really, instigate some thoughts in people who watch and maybe
Bring about the change.
some kind of a change here. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Everyone.